Welcome to the Pewtercast. I'm Brent Allen.
And I'm Ren Deck.
And today is Monday, April 17th, 2017. And this is episode 33, Drafting Riley Auman. Well, Ren, the NFL draft is just a few days away. You and I have kind of had our own draft a little bit, and we've got Riley Auman here with us for today's show to talk about the draft. And on top of all that, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are back in the building at One Buc Place, man. How you feeling about all this?
It was a big day as far as Buccaneer fans go. I mean, you know, we've been waiting, and the draft felt like it was never going to get here. But, you know, the Bucs today showed up for basically lifting weights and doing some calisthenics. But we did get three press conferences, Jameis, Gerald McCoy, and GM Jason Light. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, this is going to be the last show that we're going to do before the draft. So next time you hear us, the draft will have happened. It's been a good day. It's going to be a good show.
Yeah, it's going to be good. And, you know, for all these fans out there, they're going, now, wait a minute. I know Brent and his personal feelings for mock drafts and how much he hates them. Listen, fans, let me tell you what. Now is the time to pull them out. All right, people pulling them out like before the season is even over, I find that ridiculous. Now is the time to start doing it. Let's see who's out there. Let's put them in and kind of get an idea for what order they might go in and see how that's going to affect us as the Bucs. And we've got a really fun, a different way than I think anybody else is going to do a preview of the draft, of a mock draft, Ren, when Riley, he's going to call in here in just a few minutes. You know, Riley's going to help us go through that. We've drafted him onto our team, so to speak, for this episode. And, man, I couldn't be more excited to have him there. But before Riley comes in, Ren, we've actually got a little bit of housekeeping, a little bit of business we need to take care of.
What we got?
Yeah, well, first thing we have is we've got a new email that we'd like to read. You know, we like to read these things as they come in. Ren, I believe, I might be wrong, I think this is the first email ad that actually has you in the address line to it. So that's pretty cool.
What?
Yeah. And here's what it says. It says, this is from our friend Daniel, who is in Atlanta, I believe it is. He says, hello, Brent and Ren. Just wanted to let you guys know that you're still my number one, in my book at least. Sure, there's plenty of other quality podcasts out there, but you and your esteemed co-host bring much better insight to the team, especially through this whole mock draft nonsense. Jeez, enough already, he says. He says, I've been a loyal Bucs fan since '96 and moved from the Bay Area around 2001. But since last year when I discovered the existence of Buccaneer Podcast, I've never felt more connected to the team, and I don't miss local media coverage at all. I missed the poll about the new time format, and I say the longer the better. The caveat, as long as it's not being drawn out for the sake of being long. Keep up the great work. Dan from Atlanta.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I mean, this might be his favorite show since we are actually going to talk the draft. But, yeah, all kind words. You know, we've been trying different things about trying to get down, getting the podcast a little shorter. We realize some of it's too long, but most of the times when we try to do that and ask people what they think, the overwhelming response is longer the better. Now, yeah, obviously not everybody can sit down and listen to it all in one shoot, but as you're going throughout your day or your week or your commute or your drive or your train ride, like people are really enjoying it. And I couldn't agree more about once you discover podcasts, podcasting in general, not only with the Buccaneers, but as far as everything that's out there, there's a subject for you that you're interested in is there for you to listen, and you be able to listen on your time when you want to, and not having to go to the clock stay with the clock of the media. It's just great. So yeah, thanks so much for emailing in. Thanks for including me in the opening, and yeah, we're going to do our best for you for the remaining of the year.
Yeah, and, you know, I think we can both commit, Ren, you and I, that we're not going to draw out the show just for the sake of drawing it out. Like, as long as there's something to talk about, we'll talk. But, you know, we also try to keep the show moving and get it move along, not dwelling on the same point for too terribly long. So, yeah, Dan, thanks so much for sending in the email. Always a pleasure to hear from any one of you guys out there, any of our fans, especially those who've even emailed in before. We'd love certainly getting that. And speaking of people who are writing to us, Ren, one more thing we have to cover before we get on is we have a couple of new iTunes reviews to
Sweet.
read, which is very fun. The first one comes from Jay Bucks. It says, good quality content, feel good atmosphere, and thought out concepts. A podcast for any Bucks fan. Oftentimes takes calls from fans, which, yes, we absolutely do. That is on our Instant Cast show, which we had one, I don't know, Ren, what was a couple weeks ago, where people got to call in and we got to talk about free agency, how people were feeling about the free agency. So those are always fun shows. Certainly expect those fans to come up when we get into the season. We do those after each game, usually Sunday nights about 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock is when we do those. So thank you to Jay Bucks, sorry. And then one more, Ren. This is from Arms Offset. Says, great podcast, 5-star review. Both of these are 5 stars. Said, as a Bucks fan living in Maryland, that's very fun. I listen to a lot of podcasts and try to get the scoop on things going on at One Buc Place and listen to other fans on their opinions. And this is one podcast. He says, this is the one podcast I listen to on the day it comes out and really appreciate the effort of Brent and Ren to put into the show.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Brent mostly puts in the work as far as show notes and stuff. But yeah, we try to hit what's relevant. Today's show you'll want to get as soon as possible because I believe we will be the first Buccaneers podcast that's going to hit the air for downloadability after the interviews that went on today that I already talked about. So, we try to stay relevant, and I think we do a good job. And, I couldn't be happier with the way the show is going. And it seems like every week we're getting more and more reviews and more emails. So things are trending in the right direction. Thank you so much for the kind words.
Yeah, it's been really great. And thanks you guys for going in and leaving iTunes reviews. One thing about iTunes reviews is it helps other fans find us. It allows this community that we have here to grow just a little bit more. And so it's been super fun. Now, Ren, speaking of iTunes reviews, that actually brings us to one bit of housekeeping, and then we're going to get on with the show. We've got a little giveaway to make happen here today, my friend.
It's giveaway day.
It's giveaway day. Yeah. For the last several weeks, we've been running a giveaway. This is going to be one of the new things that we have going on here with the Pewtercast. And our first giveaway has been an autographed picture of Kevin Pamphile, offensive guard here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Who knows? He might actually wind up being a tackle or a center. I don't know. He's been cross-trained. But either way, it's him, and it's his autograph on a full-color photo, and he was nice enough to send this up my way for us to be able to send back out to you guys. And all you guys had to do was go to iTunes and leave us a review and then, shoot us an email to let us know that it was you. For what we have there. So I want to say thanks to everybody who participated in that and was a part of that. We had a handful of people decide to take part of that and to get this. So, Ren, I think it's time for us to give away this photo.
Yeah, do I get to pick?
You absolutely get to pick. All right, so here's the deal.
Oh, really?
Yep, you do. And here's how we're going to do it. I have the list here, and I've jumbled them up. There's 8 of them. We got 8 of these. So you get to pick a number between 1 and 8, and I am going to tell you who that particular person is, and what we get.
Okay, 2 3/4.
Nope, that doesn't work.
That doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
All right, I'm gonna go with 6.
6. All right, let's take a look here. Number 6 is a guy named Eric Reynolds. Eric Reynolds, you sent in a iTunes review, showed us the email, and we've actually read this one on air already. So, Eric, congratulations. You win the Kevin Pamphile autographed picture. Shoot me an email to thepewtercast@gmail.com. I need to get your address so we can get that sent out to you. Congratulations, Eric.
Yeah, good job. Which one was it?
It was one. The name on it was Reefer. It says this is a different Atlanta Bucks fan. Says this is a Bucks fan living in Atlanta who has been starved for content about my new favorite team for the last few years, and a slew of new Bucks podcast. This one has been fantastic. The Pewtercast is right there at the top of the heap. Thanks for putting out top-notch content multiple times a week, and hopefully one day It's a Bucks Life won't be the war cry of an ailing fan base anymore. So great review. It's 5-star review, so thank you so much for that. And thank you, Eric. And for everybody else who sent that in. And keep on the lookout, or keep an ear out, I guess, for news of the next giveaway, which we will be announcing in an upcoming show here on the Pewtercast.
Now, is it true that everyone that wins, like, during the year, that they're going to be entered into the big contest at the end where you're giving away a car?
Yeah, I cannot commit to that right now. Yeah, I gotta.
Okay.
As long as I get to pick the car and the size of the said Matchbox car, yeah, sure, we'll do that.
Do you remember that Hooters contest? Like, God, it was probably a couple years ago. Might be pushing a decade now, where they were giving away a Toyota. Did you ever hear that story? Okay, real quick. There's Hooters, as I hope most of our listeners probably know, since I've seen Hooters in Europe. Wing joint, and they just did this. It was like a 6-month contest, and who knows what it was? Most pitchers of beer, or most items sold, or upcharges, whatever it was. But and it was a girl down here in the Tampa Bay area won, and the prize was a Toyota. And so they made this big hubbub about it, and they blindfolded her, and they walked her out to the parking lot, and they tore the blindfold off, and in the parking space was a stuffed Yoda doll.
No.
And they were saying the winner was a toy Yoda.
Oh no.
Yeah. And it actually got pretty nasty. Obviously, like, they thought it was hilarious, but I think she took him to court. I don't remember if she won or not, but there was like lawyers got involved in this. But
that's
yeah.
fun.
So
she didn't happen to work at the original Hooters, which is right there in Clearwater, there in the Tampa Bay area, did she?
You know what? I don't know. I don't know, but it was local to me. It was down here in the Bay Area. I'm almost positive that's what it was. It could have been somewhere else. It could have been anywhere in the United States.
Sure.
But yeah, I kind of remember it being like, because it was like a local story first, and then when lawyers got involved, it kind of blew up a little bit. But so if you want, we could do something like that for our viewers, our listeners.
We're gonna get them a Hooters girl, is what we're gonna.
Yeah, a Hooters girl or a Toyota.
Oh man, yeah. Let's give them a everybody. Somebody will be entered in to win a toy Yoda.
Yeah, there'll be no blowback on that whatsoever.
No, not at all, not at all. Ren, how about we get into this episode? What do you say?
Yeah, now that I've derailed the whole show from the beginning, let's regroup.
That's all right.
Up here, guys.
We put time codes in. People have already skipped this part. Guys, hey, listen, for this episode, as we've already mentioned, it's actually even in the title of the episode. We have Riley Auman, who is the son of Tampa Bay Times writer Greg Auman, who is going to be calling into the show here. And he is going to be going with us through the only authorized mock drafts that we will do here at the Pewtercast. And actually, we're going to do it in a really fun way, where Ren and I are going to toss out positions at each group, and Riley's going to have to come back and tell us who's going to go in each position. So that should be very, very fun. And then for our top three, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers being back in the building today, there's been a few press conferences. We're going to talk about our top three things that came out of One Buc Place today for Phase 1 of the OTAs. And then we're going to round off the show with a familiar segment called Buck in the News. All of that's coming your way on today's episode of the Pewtercast. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Shortfalls and little sins, close calls when no one wins. Stand tall but running thin, I'm wearing thin. Oh, why are we keeping score? 'Cause if you're not laughing, who is laughing now? I've been wondering if we start sinking, could we stand our ground? And through everything we've learned, We finally come to terms. We are the outsiders.
You're listening to episode number 33, and with us tonight is a young man who has been a guest on this show before. In fact, he was one of the front runners in our Pewtercast Awards. Came just shy of missing out on actually winning the award, but he is perhaps one of the finest minds that we can get to talk to us all things about the draft, regardless of what his age is. Riley Auman is here with us tonight. Riley, how's it going, my friend?
Doing good. Glad to be on. Excited. Last time was definitely fun, but should be fun today.
Yeah, well, Riley, you are kind of a bit of a veteran now at this point at podcasting. You have been doing a bit of your own podcasting so far this spring with your dad on the Cannon Fodder podcast. Your dad, Greg Auman, of course, with Tampa Bay Times. But he's brought you in, just kind of letting you run wild on the Cannon Fodder podcast. Tell us how that's been for you this spring.
No, yeah, that's definitely been fun. It's been fun to run through all the positions, obviously, kind of get that 25-minute segment where you can kind of go off on different tangents. But I like how we were able to tie it back into the Bucs with every episode. So that was really enjoyable. I think I've liked doing that. We got 2 podcasts left. Should be recording one later this week and then one for next week just before the draft. So looking forward to that. So, I mean, it's been a cool process. It's been good. Definitely crazy to kind of come full circle now in terms of having covered nearly all the positions. And now we had said we were going to put off quarterback to the end because it doesn't really have much of a Bucs relevance. But now we'll be doing quarterback, so definitely.
Well, I think there might be some people who might say that it does have a bit of a relevance, although certainly not as much as some of the other positions. But for anyone out there who is listening who don't know exactly what we're talking about, make sure you go over, subscribe to the Cannon Fodder podcast. Riley and his dad have been going through, as he just mentioned, each position by position, giving a breakdown, and really Riley's just been taking us through his draft board a little bit, explaining to us who the different players are that are out there, kind of ranking them. And Riley, do you have a number how many players you guys have talked about so far through this series of episodes you guys have done?
No, I think we probably talked about, I'd say, around 200. I think we haven't covered all of them.
Yeah.
But between the positions, we probably covered, I would say, someone close to that.
Yeah, that's probably a fair number. Without exaggeration, it's been over 200 people. So the fact that Riley knows this many people, Ren, you were saying just a little bit off air that even sometimes Riley would start talking, and you go, I don't even know who that person is. Who's he talking about?
Yeah, they would bring up, his dad would ask him a question like, what's somebody like a late round wide receiver? And, he'd rattle off 3 guys and one person I've never heard of. So, of course, I have to go to Google. I have to go look the guy up. But, yeah, he does his work. What do you got? What did you how many guys have you graded now? You're probably over 300, 350 around there?
Goal to hit 400 by the draft, and I've done around 380 so far. So I'm getting close.
Nice.
Yeah, you're definitely down the home stretch. Plus, you have a goal to hit 2,000 Twitter followers before the draft too. You're pretty close to that. How far off are you on that? Maybe we can help you there tonight too.
I didn't check. I think I'm like 35 or so off. I don't know. I think I was at 1960 at the start of today. So I think I'm getting there.
Well, come on, Pewtercast fans, you guys get on it. It's at Almanac. Rather, it's still that. You haven't changed it, have you?
Junior.
Yeah, it's at Junior Almanac.
Junior Almanac.
JUNIORAUMANAC.
Yeah. So you guys make sure you go over there, follow Riley, help him get to over that 2,000 number. And while you're at it, follow us too, because we're not anywhere near 2,000 yet. But we're getting there. Coming on it. Now, as far as what we're going to do, there's a lot of podcasts out there, and there's a lot of the Bucs websites that are kind of jumping on the bandwagon, Riley, with what you guys have been doing, of kind of doing these breakdowns of all the different people who are out there. And, I didn't want to just have you kind of regurgitate to us. Ren and I, we talked about, we didn't want to have you just regurgitate really what our listeners could get just by simply going to the Cannon Fodder podcast, or maybe even some of these other lesser media outlets, because they just don't have you writing their stuff. But so we thought we'd come up with something a little more fun. Here we are. We're just, as we record this, we're just about a week-ish or so, maybe a week and a half away from the draft. 10 days away from the 2017 draft. So things are getting really amped up, super excited. I think so many people are probably on mock draft overload right now, and we just want to get to the draft and get through it and be done with it and see who we're going to wind up with. So what we're going to do, we're going to switch it up. We're going to do something a little bit different. What we're going to do is instead of having a full mock draft, because everybody knows how I personally feel about mock drafts, I thought this would be fun. Ren, you did great at actually coming up with the idea of how do we do this. But instead of picking player, Riley, we're going to depend on your information. And what we have done is we've gone in and we've actually said, here are the positions that we want to see drafted in each round. And then, Riley, you're going to give us the best person for that position who should be still available in that round. So, if we get down to the third round and somebody wants to pick up a running back, you can't give us Leonard Fournette unless he really is truly going to drop to the third round, which, doubtful that that's going to happen. So, so trying to keep with the integrity of the actual pick and what that is, of what we could be looking for how that could work. So does that all sound good, boys?
Yeah, that sounds good with me.
Yeah, sounds good to me too. Just so the listeners know, all these positions are based off Riley's draft grades. So these aren't like, USA Today or, Behind the Sticks or Move the Sticks. These are all the guys, the almost 300 guys. No, wait, what'd you say? Almost 400 guys. Is that you're at 380? Almost 400 guys that he's graded and put grades on as far as where to take him in the draft. That's what we're going by. So, like you said, no Fournette in the third round. No crazy players that you just want to grab because they're your favorite. He has to stick to his draft board. Now, when he does his mock draft, it's going to be a little different. He'll be able to move up and down and reach and do his own, what he thinks the Bucs are going to happen or what will happen for the Bucs. But for ours, like Brent said, we threw out those positions early, and he has to adhere to them each position, each round.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to do. And I am going to kick it off with my list. So I'll go through my 7 rounds on here, which admittedly I have already cheated a little bit with, but that's okay. But we'll get through that, and Riley, we'll see exactly how close we get. So now here's the thing. One of the kind of criteria that we put on here was we actually had to pick positions. And in a true list, my first round pick, and I personally think this is what's going to happen, is I think the Bucs are going to get to 19 or wherever they wind up if they trade up, trade down, whatever. And I think they're going to take best player available. Whether that's a running back, a tight end, wide receiver, maybe outside of a quarterback if that happens to be the next best position available. Because, and I've said this many times, I don't see that there is one position that is in dire straits that we have to fill that specific position. On the flip side, I don't think that there is a single position on our team that couldn't also use an upgrade at some level. And that includes wide receiver, even though we have Deshaun Jackson and Mike Evans out there. There is still some upgradability on a wide receiver, certainly as we look towards the future. I think any position could be available to be drafted. And I don't think that there's any one pressing need that we absolutely have to go get. So I would say best player available. And Riley, I don't know, did you have an answer for who you think might just be best player available at 19 before I jump into the actual positions that I picked?
I think probably Bucs, I agree with you. They'll probably go best player available at 19th overall, maybe look for a trade back scenario. But I think probably the best players available, if they're there, could be David Njoku from Miami. Certainly could be off the board by then. But I think he's probably one of the better players there. Or Dalvin Cook from Florida State. I still don't really buy the hype that he would slip out of the first round. But I think he'll probably be there on the board at 19, and he'll be an option. You think
so? So you're going on record because Dalvin Cook certainly is the guy that I think Bucs fans have had the most opinion on, and a lot of people saying, and even Jameis earlier today saying he didn't think that he'd be there at 19. But you think Dalvin Cook could potentially be there at 19?
Yeah, I think with certain slip-ups or scenarios, I think he could be there, yes.
Interesting. All right. So now for the integrity of the list, let's actually get to that. And actually what I said for the first-round pick that I think the Bucs would do is I think that they're going to trade down and maybe pick up, say, a fourth-round pick or so, and with whatever trade they make, I think they're going to take a tight end. So, Riley, who do you got for me in the first round at tight end?
First of all, we gotta watch out about trading back in the first round because last time that happened didn't end up so well for the Bucs. But yeah, I got David Njoku from Miami going there. I don't know if we're trading back past. I don't know if we're trading back past Giants because I think he's an ideal scenario for them there. But Njoku, I think he's a yards after the catch monster, a guy who probably is a developmental player right now, but a guy who can be an elite tight end, kind of dominant. We kind of had some of these same concerns with Rob Gronkowski when he was coming out, and I think Njoku kind of shows some of those same traits. But I think he'd be a nice pick if we're trading back to spot 25 or so.
And with Njoku, so we've got Stalker and we've got Cameron Brate, a couple other guys, Alan Cross and those guys. Where is this guy gonna fit into that whole scheme? Is he taking somebody's spot, or what are we looking at with him?
I think Njoku is pretty poor as a blocker right now. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if he would be able to work into a full-time role just because the Bucs like to have that number 2 tight end as a big pass blocker. But, Jason Light's a New England guy, and I think he realizes the value with what New England does now of having 2 tight end sets and having 2 players. Because, in my opinion, tight end in today's NFL is just as valuable as receiver. So I think he sees the value in having 2 elite players in the position, such as David Njoku, who could be that in a couple years, and Cameron Brate.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah, he's a matchup nightmare on the coming in the slot or even coming down low and doesn't have to block but can release off the line. There's a lot of tight ends this year that in years past they would just be wide receivers. They just happen to play tight end in college. Evan Ingram comes to mind, where he had more wide receiver traits than tight end traits. But yeah, Riley, you're all over it. Of course, that's why you're here. Yeah, I wouldn't be, man.
All right. Well, that's tight end. And by the way, I picked tight end because I do feel like that is one of the top 2 positions that I feel like we do need the most help. I'd be perfectly happy rolling with who we got, but I do feel like adding to that core, and the fact that those are guys that score points. They put points on the board, and so that to me is worth a first round pick. Now that said, for number 2, my second round pick as far as a position is over on the defensive side of the ball. Oddly, another position that tends to put points up on the board when given a chance, but I think safety. I think we're taking a safety in the second round. Riley, who do you think we're taking second round for safety?
I slotted Marcus Williams from Utah in the second round to the Bucs here. I think Williams, he's probably a free safety right now, which is what I would say the Bucs should prioritize if they're going to draft a safety. But Williams, he's got really good range, really good ball skills, and he's still only 20. So I think he's a guy where if they really wanted to, they could play Keith Tandy over him for year 1 and then have Williams slide in for year 2, still only be 21 and still be developing as a player.
I like that pick. Here's something I've always wondered, and I've just kind of been too lazy to do the research. Maybe you can help me out, Riley. What's the main – we know in Mike Smith's defense, the free safety, someone that plays strong safety spot and vice versa. But what's the difference, fundamentally or by the book between a free safety and a strong safety?
Free safety generally is more playing in coverage, kind of going around, covering maybe a guy in the slot, maybe helping in cover 2 with helping with a corner there. And then box safety, or strong safety, I should say, plays in the box where stopping the run on some fronts, but can also just shoots into the backfield and plays there.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Brent.
All right. So we got Marcus Williams in at safety. We got Njoku in at tight end. For my third round pick, I think we're going to wide receiver. I think Jason really is going to want to add a rookie presence to the veteran presence that we now have with Deshaun Jackson, certainly with Mike Evans as he's entering in his 4th year. He's got a lot that he can now actually share and teach. So who do you got coming to us fourth round or third round actually as a wide receiver?
I slotted Chad Hansen from Cal here. I think Hansen, in terms of a guy who can profile as a number 2 receiver, he's just got really nice body control and just an ability to kind of go up and get the football. Right now his hands are kind of inconsistent, but I thought his testing was good, and I think he's more than worthy of being picked around, in that 84-ish range where the Bucs will be picking.
I got a question. Kind of putting you on the spot here. Do you got a comp for him? Because I have no idea who that guy is.
I said Marvin Jones currently with the Lions. I said
okay.
Ironically another Cal guy, but that's who I like in them too.
Okay.
And with him coming in, is he going to beat out an Adam Humphries, or do you think he's going to go toe to toe and battle it out with a guy like Adam Humphries in the wide receiver spot?
Humphries, I think, is probably this team's slot receiver for next year. There isn't much question in that. If Hansen were to go to the Bucs at 84, I think he'd probably be the number 4 receiver for this year. And then they would have Mike Evans and Deshaun Jackson the outside with Humphries in the slot. And then maybe you put in Hansen on some goal line and other packages that you can use him in. But I think he isn't really a guy who profiles out of the slot, in my opinion. So he wouldn't really be challenging Humphries for targets there.
All right, very good. Well, moving on, this is where I am now going to pick up the 4th round, and this is the 4th round first pick because we traded down earlier in the first round to pick up another 4th rounder, which I'm going to keep both of these. I'm not going to trade one away on another pick. So my first 4th round pick is going to go to, and Riley, you can pick wherever this is going to go in the 4th round, is a running back. Who do you think we got coming as a running back in 4th round?
I picked Elijah Hood from North Carolina here. I think Hood's a really nice power runner, which is what I think the Bucs need right now is a change of pace guy. He's really good, got nice power, burst, speed, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. He was injured at his pro day in the combine, so I think his athletic numbers are a little bit skewed there. But right now the Bucs kind of have 2 pass catchers who are kind of seen as third down backs in Jacquizz Rodgers and Charles Sims. So I think getting a guy who can run with power and add another blend to the backfield will be a nice add.
Yeah, I like it, and this is exactly why we had you on, Riley. Like these, especially these past 2 picks, we haven't seen them mocked to the Bucs at all anywhere anyway. And so Buc fans, these are some names that if you're thinking the Bucs are going a running back later rounds, not 1-2, and receiver past 1-2. These are guys that are going to be slotted there. So start looking at them. What do you got for what's your second, 4th round pick there, Brent?
Yeah, my second and 4th round pick, and I think this is going to go to fill a spot on the team that I think we need a little bit of help in. I think we need some depth. We got to test who we have, but I think we're also okay with where we are, and that's going to be our linebacker position. Somebody to play over there, next to Quan and Levante, filling in that spot. Who do you got coming to us there, Riley?
I slotted Blair Brown from Ohio here. I think Brown is a nice leader. Was the Mike there for a couple years there for the Bobcats, and I think he's good. He shoots into the backfield, makes plays. He's kind of undersized. He's 5'11", so I don't know that he's a Mike in this defense. But I think Levante is at the weak side linebacker position, and I'm okay with even if the Sam position, which is probably where Blair will be playing in this defense, even if he only plays, I would say, maybe 2/5 of the snaps, I still think it'll be a nice value for day 3.
All right, yeah. Once again, there's some knowledge for you. I personally am not going to pick linebacker just because I think they have Glanton and Bond back there. But Jason Light did say in today's presser, he almost said, no positions off the board. What did he say? Maybe a team has 2, all pros at a position, and a team still drafts that position. So I wouldn't be surprised linebacker pops up in the later rounds.
Yeah, and that's and I mean, to what you were just saying there of having a if nothing else is a backup Mike linebacker backup Mike guy, because that's what Darryl Smith was for us this past year. If something were to happen to Quan, if I remember correctly, it was Darryl Smith who was sliding over into that spot. With him off the team now, to bring in somebody else who could also be that backup spot, because we're pretty sure Levante's not going to slide over and do it. So to have somebody who can do that. But as you say, Ren, and that's a really good point, that we still have Adarius Glanton. We still have Devontae Bond, who's coming back off of IR for this year. So that would be an interesting, I think, camp battle to see that go. And certainly by the time you get to the fourth round, these are the players that are mostly going to be battling out for their spot on the roster, come camp. But moving on from that into the fifth round now, I don't know why. I just think we are, and it's another spot that I think we could use some bolstering of. Certainly, as we look towards the future, with some of the people who are aging or maybe their contracts are coming up here real soon, and that's on our defensive line. Anywhere on the defensive line, Riley, who you got fifth round?
I slotted at defensive tackle. I got Ryan Glasgow from Michigan here, brother of Graham, who was a draft pick for the Lions last year. But I think Glasgow would offer he was just a run stopper up the middle. He isn't especially big, so I don't think he would compete with Sialver Salinga for a nose tackle role. But I think he can just be kind of like Akeem Spence was a couple years ago. As a rotational guy, you can grow into a bigger role.
And I'm pretty sure I read this on Twitter that the Buccaneers just brought in a small school, ginormous D tackle that would be slated in this area. Just brought him in for one of the visits. So I think I heard that on your podcast, Riley. Am I off? Am I right on that?
I think that was on a Cannon Fodder this week. But Grover Stewart from Albany State, small school there. The Bucs had him in for a visit this week, and he's another guy who would probably compete with Sialver Salinga as a late-round pick to be the nose tackle rotational player for this team.
I also like how you've taught me how to say Salinga, because I was all like Silver Siliga.
Yeah, I think we've been saying Silver Siglia is what I've been saying.
We've been butchering that guy's name for about 6 months now.
I think we'll probably keep butchering that name.
We've made it our own.
There you go. Riley, just out of curiosity, does your dad ever come home from the team with you open up a dictionary, you look for a word, and right next to it's a pronunciation guide? Does he ever have that for any of the players on the roster, when he comes home?
If I remember correctly, they sometimes have those they'll have them printed out at the games, I think.
That's great.
No, he's right. Yeah, he's right, because I've seen him. If you go on the Bucs website and start digging around to the spots that you really don't go, they have media cards, and all the people's at the bottom, it has everyone by position, then everyone alphabetically, and then at the bottom, any player from either team that has a difficult name to pronounce, it's broken down phonetically at the bottom of the card.
That's fun. That's really fun. All right, well, let's get back into this. I am in my sixth round, and I am actually going, Riley. It looks like we might be getting a little bit of preview of your next upcoming episode there on Cannon Fodder. I'm going with quarterback. I think we definitely are still looking at that backup quarterback position, seeing if we can't get an upgrade there, or at least seeing who's out there. And I like the idea of drafting a quarterback as often as you can. So who do you got coming at quarterback for round 6?
Here in the 6th round, I picked Seth Russell from Baylor. Yes. The Bucs have talked about in the past how they don't really like their backup differing that much from their starter in terms of play style, so they wouldn't have to alter the offense that much. And that's why I think there's other guys like Dane Evans from Tulsa or Phillip Walker, who's been getting some stock in recent weeks from Temple. I didn't really slot one of those guys there because Evans is more of a strong arm passer who I don't think would fit this team as well as wouldn't fit stylistically with what Jameis does well. And Walker's 5'11" and is more of a mobile QB, so I don't think either would fit the team well. But Russell obviously Baylor's system isn't exactly the greatest for quarterback development, but Russell, what I like about him is that he's just got a lot of heart, and he's got nice arm strength. And in 2015, he had a nice run with Baylor. I think he took them 8-0 to start the year, and then they lost the Final Four after he got hurt. There are some concerns about injuries with him. Had 2 nasty injuries where I think he hurt his neck in 2015 and broke his leg. That was a pretty rough play. But broke his leg in 2016 as well. But seems to be healthy from both of those, but it's just something to note on the side.
Yeah, that was. I was actually, when I saw Brent's list, that was the guy I was hoping you're going to pick. Obviously, I don't do this as much as you do, but Russell's been a guy that, without his injury history that you mentioned, I think he would be talked about a lot higher in this draft. And as a developmental pro QB, I think he could be a late round steal and could end up being a starter if he develops the way I think he will. That he'd be starting for an NFL team in like 3 or 4 years.
Sounds good. And what I loved about you talking to there, Riley, because I have not heard them say this, at least to where it jumped out to me, about the idea of having a backup quarterback that is in very much the same style as Jameis, although that makes all the sense in the world. Because, everybody says it. I've seen it several times this week. Listen, if your starting quarterback goes down, your season's pretty much shot, so you're just trying to ride it out. But if your starting quarterback goes down, the best thing you can do is have somebody who steps in who's a lot like that quarterback, even if it's not that guy, to minimize the change. So, even if there might be a better quote-unquote QB out there, to have somebody in as a backup who is actually more similar to your guy is good. Now, let me ask you, what is it going to take, Riley, to unseat Ryan Griffin? Understanding this is a guy that we have kept on the active roster, taking up a spot for the last 2 years, who has never seen football pads. He's never put them on during a regular season game. But they liked him so much that they were protecting him from being signed away to any other team. What's it going to take to kind of unseat that particular position where the Bucs really have something invested in it?
Griffin's kind of taking a chance on himself here. Reports in the offseason from Rick Stroud said that Bucs had offered him a 2-year contract, that would give him some longer term stability to make him the backup for the next 2 years for the Bucs, and he declined that and signed his tender. So I think with Griffin, I think it wouldn't take much to beat him out, considering he hasn't been great in the preseason or training camp the last 2 years. So I don't think it would take much to beat him out. But the Bucs have shown that they don't really value late round picks as much as they do undrafted free agents or other players. They've cut Dan Vitale last year, who's a 6th round pick.
Right.
They cut Kalen Clay the year before, who's a 5th round pick. They've shown that if you're picked from like round 4 on, they don't value as much as a pick, and that you can be replaced.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, especially all like the starters that obviously the ones that everyone knows is Cameron Brayton and Alan Humphreys. But they went and spent all that money on, as far as a undrafted free agent contract, and I've said this many times, that they spent on Leonard Wester to get him in camp. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's spot on. You're right, because there was also that fullback out of Hawaii they drafted late. I think it might have been 2 years ago, and then
Iosefa, Joey Iosefa.
Yeah, and then I don't think he even made first cuts. Like, he was out of there. So right. Yeah, good pickup on that, Riley.
Yeah, and I got to say, Danny Vitale was a guy that I was actually probably most excited about last year coming out of the draft, and I was really sad to see him go. And I don't know if he's even still on the roster with the Browns, but hope he's doing all right. And I hope we get to cream him when and if we ever get to play him. But that is going to bring up my last round, which, as Riley pointed out, may not actually even matter. But my 7th round pick is actually going to be another wide receiver, because I still think that we're looking toward the future. I think we're looking to bolster that, even when you look at something like what happened with Kenny Bell a couple years ago. So who do you got coming back to us in the 7th round? Kind of look at them in camp and see what's going on with a wide receiver, Riley.
Here I picked Artavis Scott, local kid from Eastlake. But he's from Clemson. Was a nice 3-year starter for them. Even played as a freshman there. But I think while he was a pretty prolific college player, I don't think that Scott offers much value for the next level. He's kind of got a limited route tree in terms of being able to run different patterns. But as a guy who's kind of younger and is definitely just a good story, I think that they can bring him in for camp and have him compete for that 5th, 6th receiver spot.
There you have it.
Interesting. Yeah. I like bringing in people that are hometown guys. I like, or just even home state guys, people that are Florida guys. So I like it, and give them a shot. But Riley, as you just pointed out, once you get past that 4th round, maybe it's better just to go undrafted. at least with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers anyway, go undrafted than it is to actually get drafted. So, well, that's my 7, 8 actually, as it were, 9 if you count the best player available spot. But I've got tight end Njoku coming in the first round. I've got safety Marcus Williams. Wide receiver is Hansen in the third round. Fourth round, Hood as a running back. I've got another fourth rounder in linebacker in Blair Brown, Riley says. Fifth round is defensive tackle Ryan Glasgow. Sixth round is quarterback Seth Russell. And seventh round, wide receiver Artavius Scott. So that is how that would shake out for me. Riley, you've certainly put some names in there that this is kind of like, I think I'm going with this like my fantasy team. Like I'm going to be pulling for these guys just to see. So, I'm going to be like, hey, I nailed it. So
how do you feel about that, Brent? How do you like your draft there?
I like it. Obviously glaringly missing is a guy like Dalvin Cook. There'd be a lot of Bucs fans and even our quarterback, I think, would be disappointed if we didn't get him. Well, I don't know. Our quarterback doesn't seem to think we are going to get him. So, but no, I like it. I feel like we've bolstered a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of the undrafted free agents still to go. I think we've got some really good pieces in there. We've got some new people coming in that can put points up on the board. And this looks like a group that, combined with what we have, we'll put together a team that's gonna take games that we just narrowly missed on last year and turn those into the W column. And we do that. We get in the playoffs. Anything can happen there. We'd be in the Super Bowl. Let's go. So I'm feeling pretty good about it. Ren, it is time for your list, round by round, by position. Riley's going to tell us who's out there, and you'll forgive me if I don't comment on these too much, because I'm not really that up to date with these guys. So I'm going to kind of sit back and listen for this next bit. But Ren, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, sure, no problem. I'll talk about the guys that Riley picks for me. Before we get there, though, how do you like that draft? How did you like the draft? How it broke down that you had to take with Brent's positions?
I think it fared pretty well. Wasn't exactly. I don't think the team takes 2 receivers, but I think it played out. I think this, out of the 3 scenarios, is probably the most realistic out of all of them in terms of identifying need and round and going from there.
You hear that, Bucs fans? Most realistic draft position here. Brent Allen hosts the Pewtercast.
That's all right, weird. Since you're the one who doesn't care about the most.
No. It's the whole mock draft thing. But to sit there and say, hey, these are positions that I think we could need, and these would be the position pieces we're looking for in each round. I can get with that. It just, I love that there are people out there like Riley who can go through all of this. I just can't, but I'm really glad for people like Riley, and especially glad for Riley personally for this episode here of the Pewtercast. But Ren, why don't you give us your 7-round position? I hesitate to call it a mock draft, but whatever it is.
Okay. Well, I went a little off the rails on my first round pick. I just don't think, and I agree with Brent, like, I think the Bucs are going to take the best player available. So whatever that is, then that's kind of like the draft kind of falls into places after that, as far as like need positions and match up with the Bucs as far as players there. But I'm a guy who thinks the nickel is now the new base defense. So you need 3 cornerbacks. You need 3 starting cornerbacks on your team. And I know that Ryan Smith is getting a lot of talk in the hallways at One Buc. And I also know that Jude's coming back, and Javian Elliott played very well, like a lot better than any fan thought he was going to in the slot after Jude was suspended. But I think the way the draft's going to break down, that the best player that's going to be there, and I think the quarterback needs a little higher than everyone kind of thinks it is. So for the first round, I'm asking Riley to take a cornerback for me at 19.
Yeah, so here I slotted Marlon Humphrey from Alabama. I don't know that the Bucs will take cornerback in the first round, but if they do, Humphrey will be a nice value there. Humphrey, a big hitter, kind of tone setter for the defense. 2-year starter even when he was 19 years old on the Alabama defense, which I think says something about how quality of a player he is. There are kind of concerns about Humphrey getting beat deep, but I don't really share the same sentiment about that. I think he's probably a nice number 2 corner. Currently, he's my number 4 corner overall. And I think based on where the board will fall down in the first 18 or so picks, I think Humphrey will be probably the most likely guy that they can take there at 19. And I think he'd fit well in with this defense.
Thanks. Yeah, and oddly enough, if you listeners out there watch the Miller Lite Insider Live presented by Miller Lite with Casey and Scott Smith. Scott Smith was on a radio show that was being held in Atlanta, and they pulled people around to do their own mock draft, and they asked Scott to represent the Bucs, and that's exactly who Scott Smith took in the first round at 19 was Humphrey. So I'm pleased with that. Second, I think the sweet spot for the wide receiver in this draft is in the second round. After the big three, and in my head, there's really just Corey Davis. Mike Williams' medicals scare me a little bit. I mean, obviously, I can't get in there, and I don't know what teams know. So if he gets selected, obviously, they feel a lot better than I do. And also with John Ross, like the guy can't stay healthy, but his speed puts him on another level, just gives him extra points over every other receiver. After that, there's like handful, like somewhere between 5 to 9 guys that all are interchangeable depending on whose grades you're following. So I think the sweet spot for wide receivers round 2 at 50. Who do you got for me? Hello?
Here I slotted this is one of my guys in this draft. Currently my third grade receiver. I put Carlos Henderson from Louisiana Tech here. I think with Henderson, obviously I think some people were disappointed with his athletic testing, but at 50 I think it's a really nice value. I think once Deshaun Jackson's contract lets up, I think he can grow into a number 2 receiver role, almost like what happened with I think between a Deshaun and Carlos Henderson situation, we could almost have what happened with Mike Evans and Vincent Jackson a couple of years ago, in terms of a guy who transitions in for another guy and kind of takes over his role. But I think Henderson, he's a nice deep threat. I think obviously he's a lower 5 school, so I think people will get worried about that. But Corey Davis is most people's first-rated receiver, so I don't think it's that big of an issue. PFF rated him as he forced the most missed tackles of any receiver in this class in 2016. And I just think Henderson is a very nice number 2 receiver for the next level.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Honestly, I was kind of hoping that you would take that guy. And you brought up the reason why. Those missed tackles or broken tackles that he does. It was something ridiculous. Like it was over 2 per touch. But I think that included his punt return game too. But yeah, he's the guy that I'm hoping for as well at the second round. And just for the reasons why, Deshaun Jackson doesn't stay healthy usually for all 16 games. Not that he's not any good, but and he's getting older. And after those 2 years, you just kind of slide Henderson in there, and they're both young. You got him and Evans on the outside with Winston. I think it's really exciting. So round 3, this one was hard for me because I this is the one I almost put in the first round. Obviously, I didn't put it in the second round because I thought wide receiver is too big of a sweet spot. Round 3 ended up the same thing that I think Brent did that as well. No, he did round 2. Round 3, safety. What you got?
Here I'm picking purely Louisiana Tech guys, but I picked Xavier Woods from Louisiana Tech here in the third round. Woods is really nice. I think he's versatile and can play either free safety or strong safety. But he's nice, got really nice ball skills, gets into the backfield, big hitter. Kind of reminds me of what T.J. Ward does now for the Broncos in terms of the big hitter, the enforcer of that defense. And I think with Woods, he'd probably be a free safety for the Bucs, but I still think he can be a future starter. Once again, like I said, when I mocked Brent, Marcus Williams, I think that the team can play Keith Tandy for Woods' rookie season, and then have Woods come in and compete in his second season, in his sophomore season, for a starting job.
Yeah, I like it. I've heard that guy's name knocked around when people talk about safeties as well. I don't know much about him. I don't mind. You went back-to-back Law Tech guys. You got a couple guys that you automatically got roommates for road games. You got that huge problem's already taken care of. But this round, the fourth round, I'm really interested in. This is where I slotted the running back. There's a couple of guys that I really like that I've seen mocked around this area, but I'm really interested who you've mocked there and who you think the Bucs should pick and is a fit for them running back fourth round.
And I know this is one of your guys, but fourth round based on my board, the best value here would be Brian Hill from Wyoming.
Yes! You're a genius!
But I think I'm not as big a fan of Hill as some other people are, but I think Hill here is a guy who just kind of does everything well. He's really good. Advanced analytics are in his favor as a power runner and in pass protection. But I think same deal where I mocked Elijah Hood in Brent's mock draft. I think Brian Hill's a guy who can run with power and a guy that can be a change of pace back considering what the Bucs have right now. And I think he'd be a good value for this spot.
You're the smartest person I've ever met.
By the way, Riley, I think you just personally inflated Ren's ego. like he thought this. He's had this in his head. To have it confirmed by the one and only Riley Auman to say, yes, I was right. I think his ego is just through the roof at this point.
But in my defense, I did not look at Riley's draft breakdowns and put my order that way. It's just because the amount in my head, the amount of running backs that would be taken at that spot, and my next one, which I'll get to, the amount of that position would be taken at that spot, that I thought that the next position you could wait off one more round and still get a high quality player. I think the run on the running backs is going to start. That's going to be spattered, but I think there's going to be like 3 running backs taken like every round, like 3 to 4. And and by the 4th round, if you like Brian Hill, you got to go for him there because I don't think he'll be there in the 5th. But real quick, once again, putting you on the spot, do you have a comp for Brian Hill?
I guess thinking right here, I can pull up his mock draftable page and try to see an athletic comp, maybe a guy like not maybe Arian Foster, but maybe like Alfred Blue for the Texans right now. Kind of a power runner who can does a lot of things well.
Yeah, another thing I like about Brian Hill, I'm going my Brian Hill train, but he doesn't catch the ball to the backfield a lot, which pretty much, if he could stay healthy, it would free Charles Sims for 3rd down. So it'd pretty much be like, in my head, this is the way I view it, Brian Hill on 1st and 2nd down, and then like 3rd down is all Charles Sims, if he can stay healthy. But let's move on to the 5th round. 5th round, this is who Brent went in round 1. I'm going tight end. Who's left that can help the Bucs for their 2 tight end set in the 5th round, Riley?
For one thing, going off that last pick, on mock draftable, the top comparison for Brian Hill is Jordan Howard, breakout rookie for the Bears last year. So that's
I'm the
favorable.
smartest person ever.
So
Sorry,
in terms of his athletic testing, that's somebody he lines up with well. Bernard Pierce, former Jaguars and Ravens running back, is another guy who fits there. But going on to the tight end, I mocked the Bucs. I think can afford to take a risk on a player here in the 5th round, and I took a guy who's a fairly big risk in Pharaoh Brown from Oregon. Brown is a crazy story. In 2014 was supposed to be one of the best tight ends in the upcoming draft class. Was Marcus Mariota's top weapon during that long national championship run. But Brown had a serious knee injury where tear got too close to the artery, and he almost had to have his knee amputated. So, lower leg would have been amputated, and he wouldn't have been able to play football anymore. So, but after a year and a half long recovery, was able to come back for Oregon this year after missing all of the 2015 season. And you saw some flashes of what he looked like in 2014, but I think with Pharaoh, what you're gonna get is a guy who's a lead after the catch. And probably, if healthy and had good tape for another 2 years, would have been one of the top 5 tight ends in this class. But I think it can be a nice day 3 value here. Obviously, I think there's some risk there involved with taking someone like him. If his medicals don't go well for teams, I can definitely see him going undrafted. But his on-tape upside, I like the ton, and I think he'd be a nice fit for the Bucs.
Okay, I can't argue with that. I didn't know. I saw Brown. If you go back and look at not mocks, but I guess who's the best of the best coming out. Pharaoh Brown was around there. You'd see his name spattered in in the tight end conversations about who are the guys that are out there, and he's been almost invisible to me since then. So, but I had no idea about the leg injury and that he almost lost his leg, and it took him like a season and a half or 2 seasons to get back. But this is why you're here. If you say Pharaoh Brown's, a guy you could take a flyer on medical, but his upside will really help out as value-wise, then I'm with you. So that moves to 6th round for me. I heard you say earlier you doubt the Bucs will go twice for wide receiver. I think it's a good idea. I think they're one injury away from back to where they were last year. So who you got for me in the 6th round wide receiver?
In the 6th round here, I slotted Quincy Adebojo from Ole Miss for the Bucs. Adebojo is a guy who had a really nice run game week, and is a guy I've been talking up for a while. I think he's a really nice route runner, a guy you can also trust on like a 50-50 pass, but a guy who I think in some packages can be your slot receiver if Adam Humphries is taking a couple plays off and doing that kind of thing. Adebojo is a guy who can come in, and I don't think you lose that much. And I think he's kind of like Humphries was a couple years ago in that he was in a loaded receiver group. Obviously, Ole Miss this year has guys like DeMaurier Stringfellow and Evan Ingram coming out who are kind of profiling as receivers. And last year they had guys like Cody Core and Laquan Treadwell, obviously, who came out. He was kind of a part of a loaded receiving group and didn't get as many opportunities, but made the most of the opportunities he got. And I think, at this point, like I said, the Bucs don't really value late-round picks that much. So just taking a shot on a guy like Adebojo late as a depth player wouldn't be that bad.
All right, I like it. I know absolutely nothing about that guy. I've never heard of him, so I'm going to let your analysis stand on that. And we'll go straight to the 7th round. 7th round, this is in my head. This is my flyer guy. This is the position that it's boom or bust. As far as taking this position so late, or a diamond in the rough that could develop for a couple years. I ask you to mock me an edge guy, an edge rusher in the 7th round. Almost went quarterback, almost did, but I had a kind of a feeling Brent would, so I didn't want to double up anywhere. So who do you got for me on the edge?
The edge, I picked Darius English from South Carolina, another guy who was at the East-West Shrine game. But I picked 3 Shrine games here. I just realized 3 Shrine game guys here. I just realized that. But English, productive player, was second team All-SEC this year with, I believe, 8 sacks. But just a productive player who can bend the edge and had a nice game week at the Shrine game. And at this point, I didn't have that many 7th round grids on edge rushers, and I was trying to stick with value. So I just kind of mocked him here. Okay,
that's fair. The top half of my draft, I am extremely happy with. The bottom half of my draft, which would be 5, 6, and 7, I'm just going to have to trust your analysis because I don't know anything about these guys. But, thanks a lot. I'm not going to ask Brent since it's not his draft. He doesn't care how it went. So what makes my mock draft by position more unrealistic than Brent's mock draft by position?
I don't think it's that unrealistic. I think it's just that first pick, I doubt that the team goes quarterback. It wouldn't surprise me if they did, but I seriously think in terms of just looking at needs and what they do overall, I think I'd put receiver, safety, tight end, maybe O-line even before corner as the first pick.
O-line?
But everything else looks normal besides that. I mean, running back on day 3 makes sense. I think the team is more likely to go with tight end on day 3 than they are early on day 2 or in the first round. But yeah, I think besides that first pick, I think it's pretty normal.
But with that, I mean, let me jump into that though, because we've both said that we think that, and Riley, I think you actually agreed with us on this, that first round is pretty much going to be best player available regardless of position. If the best player available in round 1 is a cornerback, do you still hold to that? Do you think we go best player available?
If it's a cornerback and it's the best player available on the Bucs board, I wouldn't be opposed to taking. I don't think Marlon Humphrey slipped, but if Marlon Humphrey slips, I like his value there. Or not Marlon Humphrey, Marshawn Lattimore, sorry. But if Marshawn slips, I like his value there. I mean, Sidney Jones is a guy I like a lot. He's a top 15 player on my board. I just don't know that this team will wait for that 1 year and risk that health concern, taking him, especially in the first round.
The guy that blew his Achilles for Washington, right?
Yeah, at his pro day, blew his Achilles.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, let's hear from the expert, unless you have anything to want to ask before we have Riley tell us how the draft's supposed to go.
No, I want to hear Riley. I want to see what he's got for us.
All right, the floor is yours. Between each pick, we might chime in. It might be something like, okay, yeah, but just so the floor is yours, my friend. Let's hear what do you got?
No, but I overlap on a couple picks here, but for the most part, I tried to change it up at certain spots. But in the first round, I picked Buda Baker, who's one of my guys in this class as well, from Washington. I think he's just a really nice overall football player. He's top 10 in the class for me, but I think he probably slips into the 20s. So I think taking him at 19 wouldn't be all that crazy. But, Buda, I've been talking up for a while as the second best safety in this class over Malik Hooker. But I think he offers you a really nice ability to be a box safety guy who gets in the backfield and makes plays on the earlier downs and then slides into the nickel on third downs. So with Buda, I think you're getting all of that. I think he's pretty close to a Tyrann Mathieu clone, except for he's cleaner off-field and is a bit quicker on-field and doesn't have as many injury concerns. So I think I like his value there at 19.
I almost, when we were DMing or PMing, I don't know which one it is with Twitter, behind the scenes, I almost wanted you to include, I wanted to try to steer you to including Buda Baker as a cornerback because, like you said, he can play nickel slot, and that's kind of really what I'm looking for. I'm really looking for a nickel slot. So, but I wanted all cornerbacks to be included. I just didn't want to pigeonhole into hey, look, I'm looking for a third slot for a third corner. He can play slot. Do you think Buda Baker can do it? But yeah, I love the Buda Baker pick. I'm right there with you. I think it hits two needs until the Bucs shore up safety and corner. He can play both, and I that would be probably, besides Corey Davis, that's the guy I want in camp.
Second round, I took Carlos Henderson from Louisiana Tech again. Isn't really much debate here. I can elaborate on him for another 10 seconds or so, but Carlos is, I think, clear-cut third best receiver in this class. I like him a ton as a guy who can create yards after the catch. Like I said, advanced analytics are in his favor, and I think he's an ideal pick at 50.
If you have him at third best receiver, what makes you think he's going to be there at 50?
I think John Ross will be overdrafted, probably in the top 10, due to his I've heard people talk about this, but I think after a while you start getting diminishing returns with speed. In terms of, I don't know how many more players you can beat with 4.3 speed compared to 4.22 speed, but the NFL always likes speed. Al Davis, obviously, but I think he probably goes top 15 if I had to guess right now. I think he's probably the first receiver off the board, so I think that kind of messes up the rest of the board. I'm high on Juju Smith-Schuster. I don't know that he's a top 40 pick, but I think he has a chance to go pretty high considering he's only 20 years old and has room to grow from here. But guys like that, I think, are the things that will slide Carlos Henderson down the board. Okay,
that's fair. Who do you got in the third?
This is another one of my guys. I'm basically just picking all my guys here. But
do it.
I'm taking Sean Harlow, guard from Oregon State here. Guy who's usually preferred as a late-round target by most people, but I've seen him as high as the second round, and I think Harlow, if you're talking about a mean player who just runs over guys and makes highlight reel plays, he's the Garrett Bowles of guards in this class in terms of a guy who's just all hustle, all heart, just kind of gets after it. I think he's a physical run blocker and a guy at the second level. And if the Bucs are, Gerald McCoy said today that Ali Marpet can be an all-pro center, so I certainly think that they're going to give Ali a look at center during training camp. So if they're going to need to address one of their guard spots, whether it's with letting Kevin Pample start at right guard definitively over J.R. Sweezy, or if it's doing something else, I think Harlow's a nice day 2 pick.
That's an interesting pick. I obviously heard my reaction when you said you would take a offensive lineman over a cornerback in round 1. So I like your logic, though. I mean, I can follow it. Especially like you said, he's he's a road grader. I mean, that's why they drafted Allen, and that's why they brought J.R. Sweezy in to be guards, just to be they want really pure mean run blockers. So yeah, I'm with you. I wouldn't do it. Probably if I mocked 100 times, I probably wouldn't put a guard in my top 4 rounds. But your logic sounds.
I'll jump in on that. I like it. I like the idea of bringing in somebody who is, he's not a first round guy, but he's not so late either. I mean, let's remember we got Ali. He was a second round pick, if I remember right, and we traded up to get him. So effectively, that's a third round pick. And to go back and to draft somebody, I know, and we've talked about it, and I've defended it, and I've been with them of, Light and Cutter and all those guys have said that they like the guys that they have now. That doesn't mean we can't add to them. And so to add a guy like this, to bring in a little bit more muscle, to bring in somebody who can just add to that room and add to the interior of the offensive line, I'm for it. And if he's the right player in the right spot at that particular time, I wouldn't hate it. I think it'd be a fine way to go. So, Riley, I'm with you. Ren. But
okay, okay, yeah. And that's fair. I mean, I like I said, I like his logic. You always got to stock the cupboard. You should stock the cupboard before you're out, not once it's bare.
Right.
So yeah, I get it. I could just imagine the groans that are going to come out from like every bar in the Tampa, Hillsborough, Pinellas County area if the Bucs take a guard round 3. Which doesn't mean it's not the right pick. I'm just like I said. Not for me, but what the hell? What the hell do I know?
And
so where are we going from here?
We'll be there to talk about it on the Pewtercast. All right, round 4, Riley, go ahead.
Fourth round, I picked Elijah Lee from Kansas State. I'm sure Scott Reynolds with Peter Report will like this pick, but with Lee, I think you're getting a guy with sideline to sideline speed. I'm drafting him here to be the Sam for this team because I think that even, like I said earlier when I drafted Blair Brown, I think even if Elijah's only playing 40 to 45% of the snaps, I think he's still a nice value for day 3. I think he's a really good player. Currently got a third-round grade on him, but I think he's closer to going in that maybe like 110-ish picks range. So with Lee, I think you can get a player who just factors in and is an impact player on special teams as well.
Yeah, you've taken 2 positions in the top 4 rounds that makes sense. I get it, but like I said before, there's Glanton and there's Bond there. But are you setting up your draft for value? Are you valuing a value over need or I'm just scratching my head. Explain this to me, Riley. Why are we taking an offensive lineman and a linebacker in the first 4 rounds?
I guess and I guess I'm more of the faction that believes that offensive line and linebacker positions that can be addressed late day 2, early day 3, and I think these are just some guys who I think will be good value picks for where they'll go.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, and I mean with that too, Ren. I know you keep throwing out Adarius Clanton and Devontae Bond, but let's remember we really didn't get to see Devontae Bond last year. He was on IR the whole year, and I know everybody's high on him. But we've seen players before that coaches and whatnot have been high on, and they just didn't work out. So in my book, Devontae Bond is still a question mark, and I hope he does great. I hope he comes in and he can play, but. He's still that question mark. We don't really know what we're going to get out of him once the lights are really on him. And Adarius Clanton, he's got a little bit more experience. We certainly liked him on special teams last year. Liked him in that backup spot. But he never really came out and shone last year. I think the times we did see him on the field, he was fine, but there wasn't anything big and flashy. So if we have a chance to, again, upgrade that position, and I go back to what I said at the very beginning of this segment, I don't think that there's a single position on this team that is in dire straits, but I also don't think that there's not one that can't stand an upgrade at its position as well by bringing in the right guys. And so I think that might be a little bit where Riley is on that of, he could be potentially an upgrade over those 2 guys. And, that's what we have camp for, is to let them battle it out and figure out who's really the best spot there.
No, I understand the logic 100%, and I'm not. I understand the logic, and I'm not disputing the logic. It's just it's just a surprise to me. That's all. That's all.
All right, Riley. Round 5.
Round 5, I kind of went with another pick I did in Ren's mock, but I took Pharaoh Brown from Oregon, another guy I think the Bucs can take a chance on day 3. Like I said, 2014 tape is really nice. 2016 tape shows a nice recovery and room to get back to 100%, and I think he'll be a nice pick on day 3.
And what position is he?
Tight end.
He's a tight end.
Thank you.
How is he at blocking from what you can tell, with the limited tape?
He's okay. I think he's probably in the same, I would say, second or third tier. It isn't a weakness, but it isn't exactly a strength with him either.
All right. I'm you know what? I kind of want now, like you said earlier, Brent, now I kind of want Brown on the team so I can see if this pans out or not. I'm really interested in it. I'm going to have to go check him out. What you got next?
For the 6th round, addressing, I guess, a need here, I'm taking Isaiah McKenzie from Georgia. I think he's probably a pure special teams player for this team. But, I'm not taking him to be a second receiver drafted. I'm taking him to be my kick returner, punt returner, explosive player, did a lot of things for the Bulldogs there on returns and end arounds and that kind of thing. So I think Isaiah can just do that for the team. And I think considering the team is still on the search for a return man, I think he might be the answer there.
I like it. I think it's an overlooked value if you can find the right guy. Sometimes it's like trying to catch lightning in a bottle with a punt returner, kick returner. But yeah, like you said, they don't value those late picks, so why not? I think it's a smart move there. What's next?
Next for round 7, this is a pretty obscure name that pretty much no one's talking about right now. But at nose tackle, I took Roderick Henderson from Alabama State, another guy who I like a ton from this draft class. But I think Henderson's just got really nice play strength up the A-gap, kind of run defender. I think he can compete with Sialver Salinga. I still don't know if I'm butchering that name or not. But I
think we all are.
I think Henderson is a guy who's got nice tape and can just be another guy who fights for a job in training camp.
Is he a big guy? Is he like a is he a Silver Salinga Sal? I don't know. But the Chris Baker, is he like that 300, like around 30, like 300 plus type guy?
Here I'm pulling it up. Henderson was for Alabama State last year, weighed in at 352, so he's big. Like I said, nice tackle guy.
Yeah, that's it.
He's not quite AJ Francis, but he's still big.
Yeah, he's real big, and I like
you're
that.
You're
like,
making me want to go try out for this team now, man. Throwing out those kind of numbers, holy crap!
Yeah, I almost went D tackle instead of edge on the on my 7th round as well, because, and people have been talking about it for a while now. But when Mike Smith had his really good Jacksonville defense, their D tackles were just like immovable objects. We brought in Siliga late. And now Baker, who's also kind of like in that mold, like I said, the plus 300, like, closer to 330. So yeah, I think it fits the scheme. I think that's a real smart pick. I like how you went deep and went grab somebody from old school. So if I was going to rate these drafts, I'm going to say I win. Anyone else?
I think I win, but
I think I would. Riley, do you think you won?
Biased.
No, I think probably Brent would be the best for me in terms of I kind of picked I think he filled out need in terms of and put it with an appropriate round value better than me, where I kind of just took a guy where I felt like would be nice fits. And I think with this team, we kind of mentioned this to open the pod, but I think this team was in a position different from previous years where they can take a chance on guys and don't necessarily have to take a guy for need early on. 2015, they had to take quarterback early on because they just had no quarterback. Jameis Winston going early on. Quarterback last year, kind of in a different situation, but still in need of a number 2 corner, you take Vernon Hargreaves. So I think now this year they have the opportunity to take from a variety of players in different spots, and I think they're going to take advantage of that.
I
I
agree.
couldn't agree more.
Yep.
Yeah, like it's set up like we've all said at the beginning of this segment where they could go tight. They could go anywhere. You know, they could go anywhere, and I think that's how it's going to set up the rounds after that, and then like where the sweet spot, and like Riley said, and how his draft kind of molded to like where the value pick is. And once again, you know, Jason Light said no position safe, so you know, I would gasp, but I wouldn't. I'm not going to be surprised. Well, I would be surprised, but I would understand if it went something like, you know, guard, third round, linebacker, fourth round. So that's what makes it fun, man. You know, we're not slotted to a spot, and we're not chained to a player or position. So it's gonna be a fun night, a fun couple days.
Well, guys, with that, we're now going to turn this back on to the listeners, to you guys. We would like to know your thoughts on all of our thoughts, on Riley's thoughts, as he's really taken the time to kind of bring some expertise and to dole these out. So what positions do you think, are you thinking that we're going to take in the different rounds? Where do you think we're going to go? Do you think whose draft list do you think is the best draft list? You know, which one do you think might be the most realistic? You can let us know. Shoot us an email to thepewtercast@gmail.com, or tweet us at thepewtercast, or leave us a comment at facebook.com/thepewtercast. We do respond to all forms of feedback, and it's one of the more fun aspects of being in this Pewtercast family. Well, guys, coming up next is going to be our top 3, and we're going to be taking a look at our top 3 things that have come out of One Buc Place today on the first day of whatever this phase 1 of OTAs is. Lots of fun stuff that has come out just in the last couple of hours, and we'll be talking about it for sure all week long. We're going to talk about it here tonight on the Pewtercast. You guys stay tuned with us. We'll be right back.
How does a bastard, orphan, son of a whore and a Scotsman, dropped in the middle of a forgotten spot in the Caribbean by Providence, impoverished and squalor, grow up to be a hero and a scholar?
Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Right now, for you, the Pewtercast fans, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. This summer, I'm reading the book Alexander Hamilton by Ron Chernow. This is the book off of which Lin-Manuel Miranda has based his hit Broadway musical Hamilton. In the book, Chernow tells us the engaging story of a relatively unknown founding father who was key to just about every important event in the founding of the United States of America. And by the way, he was someone who made friends and enemies at just about every single turn. It's not hard to understand why Miranda was inspired to use hip-hop as the art form to convey Hamilton's story to the stage. To download Alexander Hamilton or any one of Audible's 180,000 titles that you can choose from, just go to audibletrial.com/thepewtercast. Again, that's audibletrial.com/thepewtercast for your free audio book.
See if you can spot him. Another immigrant coming up from the bottom. His enemies destroyed his rep. America forgot him. We fought with him. Me, I died for him. Me, I trusted him.
Me, I loved him.
And me, I'm the damn fool that shot him.
There's a million things I haven't done, but just you wait.
What's your name, man?
Alexander Hamilton.
Welcome back to the Pewtercast. You're listening to episode 33. And for today's top 3 segment, you know, in light of the Buccaneers finally being back at One Buc Place for phase 1 of Riley Wren, we were talking about this earlier today. What do we call this? Is this OTAs? It's something. But all they're doing is weightlifting and conditioning. Is that right?
Oh yeah, just voluntary workouts is what they're calling it right now.
Yeah, voluntary. Yeah, and you know, I was actually, because I was bored today, I was actually reading the collective bargaining agreement, and it's very explicitly states that these have to be voluntary, that they cannot be mandatory or compulsory in any sort of way, shape, or form. It's completely voluntary. But they're just doing weight training and workouts. That's all they're doing. They're only allowed in the building for 4 hours, and they're only allowed to be conditioning for 2. So it's all kinds of weird stuff. So anyway, but the Bucs are back, guys. the Bucs are back in the building. Stuff is really starting to happen here for 2016. Oh my gosh, 2017. Things are going. So there's a bunch of press conferences we got today with some players that we haven't heard from in quite a while. And so what we're going to do is we're taking a look at our top 3 lines to really just come out of One Buc Place. The top 3 things we heard from One Buc Place today. So Riley, as our guest of honor, I'm going to toss it to you first. Did you have any criteria when you were picking your list, and what is your number 3 thing to come out of One Buc Place today?
I kind of, in terms of me, I just kind of went through the transcripts that they released afterwards. Bucs PR is always good with that, but I kind of went through the transcript and looked at kind of the big ideas that they were trying to express today. And my number 3 thing was Jameis Winston's confidence in the offense heading into this season. You know, Winston definitely expressed confidence in adding guys like Deshaun Jackson to the offense and just kind of improving the team overall. And obviously, you know, Jameis is always pushing himself, but you know, I think he understands the pressure's on for him to be for him to really become the franchise guy, because now they've given him another elite target. You know, Jameis called I think he called Deshaun today a Bentley with a Ferrari engine.
Yep, he sure
so
did.
I think they've given him that next nice number 2 weapon now. Where the last couple of years he's been able to play the whole well, I've only had Mike Evans as my target card. I don't think now that this offense is as fixed as it is now, I don't know that he can be able to use that as an excuse anymore. Not that Jameis is the kind of guy to use excuses, but
yeah, I like it. I love the confidence around the team. It speaks so highly. You know, a lot of times we get to this part, at least in recent memory, and there's been we feel good. Yeah, this is going to be a good year. But when there's an expectation, you know, I talked about this on a previous episode here of the Pewtercast, that you have to expect to win. In fact, I believe that was the entire theme of the episode, was expecting to win, and you can tell that they are actually expecting good things to come out of them for this season coming up here. So,
you know, a lot of Jameis's interviews go like that. He's always excited. He's always hyped. You know, that's just the way it is, and I wouldn't have it any other way, nor do I want it any other way. But what I picked for my third one, it's there's no surprise. It's nothing cute or niche. It's pretty basic stuff, but I think it's a big deal, and it needs to be mentioned, is that Mike Evans' option got picked up, his 5th-year option. Now, obviously, this is just step 1 into making a big offer to Mike Evans eventually, but now they've made it official that Mike Evans they got his 5th-year option in case, you know, the sky falls and they can't get something worked out with the agent. But Jason Light made it very clear he wants Mike Evans as a Buc for life, and he will be contacting his agent, and they're going to start talking a long-term contract. But step 1 of that process is picking up his 5th-year option, which they announced that they did. So that's my number 3.
Yeah, that's I mean, what more can you say? Because we've been asking for that since really the end of last year. Is when are they going to pick up his option, or are they going to pick up his option? Ren, you even posited that they should just go ahead and give him the extension now, where they front load that contract with some money to kind of let that sift out now while we've got some extra cap room, which I actually think is not a horrible idea. But I tell you, I liked that line so much, Ren, that it is also my number 3 pick for for things that come out of One Buc Place, is hearing that Mike Evans got his 5th-year option exercised, and specifically that line of he wants to be a Buc for life. You know, I remember a bunch of years ago when Gerald McCoy, when he got his big contract extension, and it was going, what's his contract to? Isn't it like 21-12 or something like ridiculous? Like, it's forever. When is his contract up?
Gerald McCoy?
Yeah, Gerald McCoy. Like, it's a long...
It's 2001 Space Odyssey.
It's a long contract. But I love that idea. I love the idea of players being able to stick around. They get drafted by a team, they're going to retire with a team. I mean, nothing kills you more than to see a guy who is a franchise player who spends his last couple of years with another team. You're just it just doesn't feel right. And so the idea that we're going to get to keep Mike Evans around, and I mean, and that's not to christen him for the rest of his life, but I mean, he keeps playing, and I'd love to keep him around, and I love the fact that we're going to get him back, and that as part of the culture shift at One Buc Place, oddly, since Mike Evans has stopped jabbering so much, his voice has become that much louder. Does that make sense? Like when he talks, when he speaks, by his actions, his presence is more felt, and what he's bringing to this team just seems more felt since he stopped jabbering so much, which is a little odd, but I just find it very interesting. So I love the fact that we're going to get him back, and Ren, you and I are on the same page with that one. That is absolutely my number 3 as well. Riley, how about you, man? How about your number 2 pick of things that you saw or heard coming out of One Buc Place today?
We had talked about Gerald McCoy probably being a Buck for the rest of his career, but McCoy, you obviously kind of feel bad for him because, he hasn't had a chance at the postseason yet. A 7-8 year vet now, and hasn't seen a whiff of the postseason yet, So, Gerald today I saw from in his interview, what I saw was just his hunger to get to that postseason. He's been wanting that for a while now. Mm-hmm. But he just seems like he wants this team, and he'll do anything he can to get this team to the promised land in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that the McCoy comments are going to be on our list in one spot or another. Just to fill in the gaps real quick with Brent, McCoy's under contract to 2021.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's got like another 4 years to go. But yeah, he, I think it was Jenna Lane asked him a question, and it's not like he broke down and cried, but you kind of his voice dropped, and it's not like he crumbled, but he just kind of settled in and was like, all right, guys, I got something to tell you. And then he was extremely candid and open and vulnerable about what he was talking about. I'm sure that's going to get talked about. I'll just go ahead and just run into that about that, because that was one of mine. I'll just say it's my number 2 is McCoy's comments, saying that he had to reevaluate himself as a player and a man because he went to certain players or not players, he said people, he said very creditable. I'm assuming they're players, but they could be coaches as well, that he's not doing enough on the defense. He's not being enough a good enough leader for the defense to follow. And he's, like Riley said, he's hungry, and he's going to change it. And, kudos to him for, first off, self-evaluating himself enough where he stepped outside of himself to ask other people what they thought. And then secondly, taking it to heart instead of just being offended by it or getting defensive about it, and just continue on the way he was. So it seems like he's always self-examining, and he's finally gotten the message, no matter how he got it from him or somewhere else, but it's there, and he's taking the responsibility of the Bucs not being, and him not being where he wants to be in his career, and the Bucs not being where they want to be as far as record-wise. He's taking it personally, and it's going to be an exciting year to see what he does with this and how he can transfer it onto the field.
Yep. That's all I can say about that, because that is not my number 2 pick. And I think that's all I can say at this particular moment. My number 2 pick, if I'll just roll off of that, actually comes from our general manager, Jason Light. And I thought it was really funny. I think it's very apropos. And I think it might have actually been directed exactly at Riley. No, I'm just joking, Riley, not at all. But actually, in referencing people, the quote that I wrote down was, he said, "The real experts are the scouts. They don't get 10 mocks to get it right." I loved that. Just
you and your mock.
I know. It just, in light of this episode, in light of everything else going on, in light of this last season, but even more, I love the reality and the sobering aspect that he brings to that of, listen, we don't get to go back and redo this a bunch of times. We get one shot. You get one shot to get it right, or you've bust. And you don't have time for regrets. You can't go back and say, "Oh, I wish I would have done that." I mean, let's go ahead and bring it up. The Roberto Aguayo pick from last year. You don't have time to sit there and reevaluate that and reevaluate that and reevaluate that. That was the pick you made. You can't sit here, and even as fans, like, it does us no good to keep dwelling on that and go, "Oh, well, if we would have just picked a defensive lineman, or if we would have just done this, then this way." That does us absolutely zero good. They had one pick. That was the one they felt that they wanted to go with at the time, and they thought that it would yield good results. And in Jason Light's own words, no risk it, no biscuit. And the backside of that is no risk it. Maybe you get no sausage or cheese to go with your biscuit either. Maybe no gravy. Like, maybe you don't even get the biscuit at all, even if you do risk it. Like, that's the other side of that, right? So, the idea that he's taking such a responsibility, and he's pulling his team together. I don't know. For one, it made me laugh. Okay, and any time you can make me laugh, I'm gonna love it. But at the same time, the idea that he's sitting there, and by the way, it's what I love about how we have structured this particular episode, Riley. It's what I love about what you and your dad are doing. You can set your draft board and go, "This is who I think this is where I think the players are going to fall, and this is where I think our position needs are and what we may be looking at, and here's what our needs are, and here's who's going to fit those needs and who may or may not be available." Like, that's I think that's a really okay and worthwhile way to do it. But to get into mock draft after mock draft and do 84 different mock drafts as they go through, I just don't understand that. Now I know a lot of fans out there love it. Brent Allen just personally doesn't understand it. Go ahead.
Let me jump in here, Riley. First, and this is why I don't like the quote. It was probably my least favorite quote. It has nothing to do with mock drafts. First, it's just an incorrect quote. One, for Riley, that's not what Riley does. Riley doesn't do mock drafts. I know you're just joking, but I just want to reiterate that for everybody out there. Riley doesn't do he's never put one out yet. I know he's going to put one out later, like right before the draft, but he's never done one. He does player analysis. Basically, he's a scout. Now, with Jason Light saying about how no one, we only get one chance to get it right. Well, yeah, but you know everyone who's picked when it comes to your turn to pick. And that's not what a mock draft is. A mock draft is guessing what people were picked. So I understand what he was saying, but saying that he doesn't get 10 mocks, that's not true, because he doesn't get any mocks. I mean, I remember last year when he said that they did over 300 mock drafts. Like, him and his scouting team and his personnel staff did over 300 mock drafts just for the Vernon Hargraves pick at 9, which ended up being 11. Imagine how many they've done now. Now they get all these more variables come in, 10 more picks down. So I get what he was saying. I just don't think it was the right words to use. Basically, he's saying once we scout a guy and put him on the board, we don't get to keep reevaluating. Once I make a pick, it's there. I can't throw out a pick and then 2 weeks later decide to change it. And that's what he was saying with the mock drafts. But I just didn't really fit. I don't think it fit what he was saying for what he meant, because he doesn't, he has, he only gets one chance, but he already knows the 18 guys that are selected before it gets to him. So it's not really a mock draft. It's just a player evaluation from there.
Yeah, but Ren, but it was funny, huh?
It did crack a smile for me. All
right.
Well, I'd be interested to how Riley felt about that.
Oh, no, it's fine.
Okay.
Riley's taking the high road.
All right, fair enough. All right. So what do you got? What's your number one?
My number one kind of goes off what you guys have been talking about for a while, but just White's overall confidence in the process and the picks that he's made and being able to find starters on day 2 of this year's draft, I guess. Just overall, that pressure came off as he's confident in the roster that he's been able to build now entering year 3, being able to I think now in earlier years, White's been able to make the excuse that he hasn't been able to implement his full scheme or have his full staff here, but now he's got his hand-picked head coach, his well-built roster now. Like, I would say there's very few players that are from, like, the Shiano and Dominic era that are left on this team. If I had to guess, maybe 5 or so. So I think now the theme that I got from today is that this team's not holding themselves to excuses this year, and that it's kind of all or bust now.
Right.
It's James has got to step up and be that franchise player. Joe McCoy's got to help get this team to the playoffs. And Light's probably on the hot seat if this team doesn't make the playoffs this year, considering the amount of time he's had on the job.
Yeah, I'm with you. I always love, probably because it happens so infrequently that we actually, not we, but the press actually gets to sit down and talk to Jason Light and do a press conference with him. It seems like there's one like at the beginning of the year and the end of the year, and then you get tidbits where like maybe they meet him at the owners meeting. I remember Peter Report, Scott Reynolds got to sit down with him and do an interview in his office, which I really enjoyed, because that's where you can really get the feel for the team and what they're going. And I think Riley hit it spot on. Like, he has flipped this roster in 3 years. Like, these are his guys and his players, and they're raring to go. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You got anything to add to that before I go to my number one?
Yeah, except just to say that here at the Pewtercast, we have put in a request to Jason Light's office to come be a guest on the show, which that request has gone unanswered, not unsurprisingly. But should he answer, Ren, just you wait. You and I will get to talk to Mr. Jason Light. How awesome would that be? How awesome!
That would be awesome.
I'm probably going to add a little bit more to this, but Riley, to your point of they're not holding themselves to excuses anymore, and I got to tell you, when you talk about, and I mentioned it a few minutes ago, a culture shift, that's a big key. You can't accept excuses anymore. It is what it is. You either did it or you didn't do it, and you got to figure that out, and you got to go. And that's going to lead me to my number one here in just a minute. But Ren, how about your number one?
This is the one that shocked me the most. There's lots of things I could talk about, but this is the one that I was like, huh? It's how Jock Smith hasn't signed his restricted free agent offer yet. Mm-hmm. He only has till Friday to do it. It wasn't talked about. No one asked about it. No one followed up on it. It was just like, he hasn't signed it yet. And everyone's like, oh, okay. So why hasn't he signed it? Because, he was in the building. He signed his exercise waiver. Since he's not under contract, be able to lift weights and work out with the team, he had to sign like an exercise waiver. So I just I thought that was a story, because a lot of Bucs fans are kind of depending on his 7.5, 6.5 sacks. The breakout you're supposed to have this year is supposed to come, or last year is supposed to come this year now, due to the injury and back from his ACL. So how no one talked about that or followed up on it, I thought it was besides Gerald McCoy saying what he said, I thought that was the second biggest story but no one talked about it. So for my number one, I would like to, I want to know what's going on with that. So that's my number one thing that I heard come out of there was that Jock Smith hasn't signed his offer sheet yet.
Riley, you got any thoughts on that?
Oh no, yeah, I kind of agree with the sentiments he's expressed there.
Yeah.
Very concise young man.
Yeah, I mean, what can I say? Most of those stories were eaten up with, hey, here's all the guys who signed these other offers. Oh, and by the way, Jock Smith hasn't signed his yet. It was kind of the thing that was just tossed out at the end, but certainly that seemed to be the real story there. I don't know. Because you kind of want to. There's a piece of you that just goes, he just hasn't gotten around to signing it yet. But no, he did. You're right. He did have to sign a waiver in order to participate in conditioning today. So if he was going to sign the waiver, why didn't he sign the other thing? And who knows what's going on. But the other thing that I'll say to that, and this is the only consolation I have right now, is he didn't, because he doesn't have to. He does have till Friday. Now that Friday is coming fast, but he does have till Friday. So, I guess we'll see what happens. I found it a little interesting that, and I'm sure there's probably some date reason, but, all of the other guys signed their stuff today. Like, well, were they waiting to hear from other teams? Is Jock Smith waiting to hear from another team? Is he, exactly what's happening there? I don't know. That feels more like almost like a gossip thing right now. Like, hey, what's going on with Jock? as you say, I think we're depending on him being a part of this team. And I think most Buck fans want to see him on this team.
And I agree with you. It's probably going to pan out to be absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
It probably will. Maybe he gets signed tomorrow. Who knows? But, like you said, Brait signed his, Adam Humphrey signed his, and they released that, and then it's like he didn't sign his, and it's like, well, and then no one asked why.
Right.
So.
Right. I mean, maybe the lawyer that's reviewing the contract on his side is on spring break. I don't know. I mean, there could be any number of reasons why he hasn't signed yet. Maybe he will tomorrow.
Agree.
Who knows? Maybe there's a little bit that they have a little bit of language. I don't know. But no, I agree with you. I think that's a big thing. It certainly is something to watch over the next couple of days, particularly as we go into the draft, because not having Jock Smith, that might impact, maybe not at all, but that may or may not impact where we draft and what we do. Well, guys, for my number one, if you know me, if you've listened to this, if you've followed the hints that I've dropped here over the last few minutes, it should be no surprise what my number one thing is. And it is, Ren, exactly what your number two was, which is Gerald McCoy saying, I haven't done enough. Kind of having his own little come to Jesus moment. And, McCoy's he's a man of faith, so I feel comfortable in saying that, he has had his time where he's had to look at it. And, this is one of those things that as a student of leadership that I've been able to be over the last 10 years or so and be able to see this, like this whole shift in culture around the Bucs place is such an interesting case study to me. And it's a team that I absolutely love. So this is, you mark my words, this moment right here is going to be a huge moment for Gerald McCoy and for this team and the turning around of this team. To look at all of the stuff that he said in that press conference, but you even go back to, Gerald McCoy was the de facto leader, the face of the franchise for so many years when nothing was happening. And that's not to bag on him. It's just nothing was really happening with the team. And when Jameis came in, Gerald McCoy said, great, you got it. I didn't even really want it in the first place. You take it. And people kind of came up with all these, there's rumors of Jameis and Gerald having beef with each other, which just turned out to be stupid. But Jameis called Gerald McCoy. It was a storyline we talked about last year, Ren, where Jameis called out Gerald McCoy saying, I need you to be more of a vocal leader on this team. And then
I remember,
and then the story being that you fast forward to the Pro Bowl, and now Gerald has talked to three people. We don't know who those three people are, and they all said and kind of called him out on it and said, "You've not done enough in the years past to lead your team. You've got to step up." And here's Gerald McCoy, not as a man who's not only hungry, but I think they've awoken something that has been within him that we as fans have all seen. Like, we've all seen him be the leader or have the capability of being a leader on this team, but he's not been stepping out and reaching for it. And I think what we're now going to see is Gerald McCoy stepping out and reaching for it and stepping into really a person and an attitude and a vocal forward thought. In other words, he's going to step into being a leader that he was always meant to be, that has been buried deep down inside him somewhere, and we're going to see this come out. And he's not going to be Warren Sapp. He's not going to be any of those other guys. He's going to be his own man, and how this comes out. And I, for one, cannot wait. And I think this is just one of those steps on the way. And this could be a huge shift for what's going to happen with our defense this year. With Robert Ayers being right next to Gerald McCoy, and now we've got Chris Baker in there. There's people that are whispering this, but Gerald's still the guy. Like, make no mistake, he's still the guy. And I just can't wait to see what's going to happen with that. And for all those reasons, Gerald McCoy saying he's not done enough to lead this team. That makes my number one. It was the thing that I immediately latched onto, and I've read everybody, even the people that I don't like reading anymore. I've read everybody's stuff because everybody's jumping onto that. So that's my number one.
Yeah, and it rightfully should be. I mean, that was like I kind of alluded to before, I've seen, Buccaneer reporters talk on Twitter how, like, I've never seen a press conference like that. I've never been to a press conference like that. I've never seen a player talk, that way at a press conference. So, it was something special, and he was prepared for it. And he knew what he was going to do. Yeah. So it's gonna, like you said, it's gonna. I can't wait for it. It's just going to be interesting. Like, we'll see what happens. I'm hoping for the best. I'm not preparing for the worst, but let's be honest. Like, you've almost heard this before from Gerald. Not quite this personal. Like, it seems like he really got it this time. But this isn't the first time where Gerald said, I need to be better this year and blah blah blah. But it sounds like now, like the light bulb. Now he knows how to be. Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, it's going to be, like I said, like you said, it's going to be fun to watch. Yeah. I'm excited.
And honestly, I think we saw a little bit of this coming off of that Atlanta game last year. I remember going into the bye week, it was Gerald who was kind of sitting there, who's all reticent and quiet and had his sunglasses on, saying, we're going to have to go every one of us have to go look at the man in the mirror and figure, and, they came back and man, they had an amazing last half of the season. I think this is just the right next step. It's the next evolution of what that is. Riley, I'm curious, have you happened to have any conversations with your dad about that? I don't even know if he was able to be in the room for that press conference with Gerald. I'm sure he was. Have you had any conversations with him in what it was just like being in the room with Gerald or anything like that?
Oh, no, we didn't really talk about that. He was there today, but no, we didn't really talk about that, no.
Dang.
Breaking news.
I was going to say, if
Riley does not know how.
Yeah. I mean, if Greg happens to be walking by the room and wants to pop in and tell us, that'd be amazing. But
stop. He's probably standing at the door, tapping his foot, telling him it's 11:15.
Time to get to bed,
young man.
Right. Well, guys, before we jump on off of this, do you guys have any honorable mentions of things that you also heard that maybe didn't quite make your list, but still kind of jumped out to you? Riley, we'll start with you on that.
I'm going to go with he doesn't.
Okay. Or Riley went to go get his dad. I don't know. Ren, how about you, man? Any honorable mentions?
I had a couple, but nothing was big. I thought it was interesting that Jason Light had said they've already taken a handful of players off the board, and not all of them for criminal issues. So players like Malik McDowell, who basically said I quit listening to the coaches, might be somebody who has been mocked to the Bucs. It's somebody they might have taken off the board. But he made it sound like he's also taken players off the board because of criminal issues. Now they've had Mixon in, so it could be him. Everyone's talking about Dalvin Cook sliding, so it could be, maybe it was something like that. And I'm sure there's lots of players on the board that they scout. I mean, we talked to Riley, and he gave us like 9 or 10 guys I've never heard of. And everyone has a past, so it could be people that I have no idea has something wrong or have a criminal past or a bad attitude, and I don't even know who they are, let alone what they've done. So that was one thing. I thought it was very telling. This wasn't from the interviews, but Casey did a one-on-one with Jameis down on the field, and it's like, she started it off where, hey, you get to be back in the building, and then right after that she says, well, you've been around a lot. And then James goes, yeah, it's usually the only people you see are me, Allie, and Gerald, which I thought was really interesting, was that he brought up Allie because obviously everyone knows, and I think every single person was asked about this move to center for Allie, that was happening, and that Gerald McCoy, since the Pro Bowl and before this interview, we kind of found out and heard about what was going on, that he's been hanging around One Buc and putting in extra time. Like you said, you read the CBA, there's certain things you can and can't do, but he's in the building. So I thought that was really interesting. Not much else after that, though.
I would say about that Gerald McCoy thing, because I was thinking about that, for whatever ways Gerald has or has not led the team, one way he has led the team has been in his work ethic. And it's why I think it was last year, it was in the off season. There was something that came out that where somebody had questioned Gerald's work ethic, and it was such an offense and it was such an affront. And even the defensive line coach before Jay Hayes, I can't remember his name right now. He debunked that myth like right away. So the idea that Gerald McCoy is always around, but now that he's around even more, definitely love hearing that. But yeah, to hear those guys staying out there, I thought was fantastic. I loved getting to hear that. A couple more honorable mentions for me. One of them actually came from, it was actually a quote by Warren Sapp, but came from Gerald McCoy while he was in his interview, where he said, Sapp always told him to chase the ghost of the game. I loved that idea. You get these players who are not really in the league anymore, who put up these big numbers, and you're chasing them. You're chasing their ghost. You're trying to top them. And, certainly Gerald McCoy always gets the comparisons to Warren Sapp. And, basically what Warren Sapp is be better than me. Outdo me. And one way that's going to tell us is Gerald McCoy tops that double-digit sack. And Gerald McCoy said, I'm getting double digits. It's going to happen. I will get double digits. And, I believe him. I absolutely believe him. I also love Jameis talking about Doug Martin a little bit. He said Doug is Doug. But one thing he said about it, and I'm sure we'll talk about this soon, is he said, speaking of Doug, he's like, Doug means the world to us, meaning the team as a whole. Doug means the world. I for everything that Doug's been through, for all the stuff that's going to come up here over the next bunch of days, bunch of weeks, to hear that, I don't know, it jumped out to me. I wish I could talk a little bit more about that, but that's not the time or place to do that here. Did we ever get him back?
I am still here.
There you are. That's all right.
There he is.
Riley, did you have any honorable mentions maybe that just didn't quite make your list that you want to share with us?
Oh no, I definitely think the vibe around One Buc today, like I said, was very nice. Felt like this team definitely has had a culture shift from years past. But I'm excited about what this team can bring for 2017 and where this team can grow.
Yeah, we love it. We love it. All right, Bucs fans. Well, we'd like to know how your picks stack up against ours. What came out of One Buc Place that jumped out to you guys, or was there something that you'd kind of move up or down on your list? Well, you can let us know on Twitter at @ThePewterCast or over at Facebook.com/ThePewterCast, or shoot us an email to ThePewterCast@gmail.com. Well, guys, before we get out of here, why don't we take a look at this week's poll?
It's real bad, okay? I don't like those numbers at all.
Just one poll? Those things aren't scientific.
Yes, they are. All this is science. This is math.
Well, in this week's poll, we thought we'd ask, really in light of this episode and the draft coming up, what do you think the Bucs are going to do with their first-round draft pick? And the options we gave you were that they would move up, that they would stay right where they are, or that they would move down. And before we reveal the winner, Riley, Ren, what would you guys think? What do you think's going to happen, or what would you like to see happen? And what do you think?
Go ahead, Riley.
I think the Bucs will... You can go, sorry.
No, go ahead. I was telling you to go ahead.
Oh, but I think the Bucs will probably I think they'll probably stay in place. I would like to see the team trade back and pick up another pick.
Yeah, I was with Riley. I think the sweet spot in this draft is the second and third round as far as the players where they all clump together, where it doesn't really matter where you pick too much in those 60 picks. That the difference between the players as far as overall grades don't really vary as much. Then once you hit the fourth round, they start to spread out more. So the more second and third round picks the Bucs can collect this year, the happier I'm going to be.
Yeah, well, I tell you, I would agree with both of you guys. In fact, I agreed so much that I put it into the segment, in our first segment of tonight's show, that I do think, or at least I would like to see the Bucs trade down and pick up an extra pick for a later round pick. I would love to see them do that. However, guys, only 31% of the people who voted in the poll agreed with us. 15% said that they should move up, and winning the poll at a healthy 54% was saying they're just going to stay right where they are. Well, guys, that's going to do it.
That's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I think so. That probably is what's going to happen. Well, guys, that's going to do it for this segment. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Oh, no, wait. Before we get out of here, Riley, you're jumping off here. I think this is where your exit is.
Bon voyage.
Yeah, Riley, thank you so much for being a part of the show tonight, man. I really, really appreciate your time coming in, on late on a night to give us your expertise on the draft coming up here in just a few days.
Oh yeah, definitely. No, I had a ton of fun. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Hope you guys can have a nice evening.
Yeah, and why don't you tell us real quick where people once again, I know we did it a little bit earlier, but real quick, where can people find you on the internet?
You guys can find me on Twitter at Junior Almanac. That's JuniorAumanac. And then I publish my work at Pro Football Spot. Pro Football Spot for their draft site. I publish my work on there. You can find my work there. I have my independent site, almanacscouting.wordpress.com. I'll occasionally put stuff up there. So you can find my work on really any number of those sites. I'm always putting my takes out on Twitter and that kind of thing. So you can find the information from me there. I'm really pretty much everywhere. So.
Yeah, and be sure to check out Riley on the Cannon Fodder podcast for the last several weeks for the series that he and his dad have been doing there. And yeah, everybody go give Riley a follow. Let's get him up over that 2,000 mark. Which is a goal that Riley has. So Riley, man, thanks again so much, and we'll catch you next time. All right, Riley?
Okay, thanks.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for
Riley.
this segment. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Buc'In the News. Hey, Pewtercast fans, I just wanted to take this moment to say thank you to everyone who has been supporting the show. Whether you've taken the time to leave us an iTunes review, which helps new listeners find us, or you've sent us an email, you've tweeted us, or left us a comment on Facebook, we love interacting with you, our listeners. Or perhaps you've gone the extra step in helping the show out financially by leaving a one-time donation at paypal.me/thepewtercast. Every dollar goes back into making this show the best possible Buccaneers podcast out there. So in whatever way you've chosen to support the show, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And we're back. This is episode number 33 of the Pewtercast, and for today's discussion segment, Ren and I are going to be dusting off an old one from the closet, Buc'In the News, where we take a look at some Buccaneer players who have been in the news lately. There's been a lot of Bucs things in the news here just even over the last 24 hours, Ren. So what do you got for us tonight? What do you want to talk about? What have you seen heading out there, kind of in the headlines?
I wanted to talk about maybe not a lot of people saw this, but the Buc mobile app, and I'm sure it was on their website too, where you heard Jameis. If you've seen the interview that happened today, and today is Monday, the April 18th, at One Buc place, where it was the first day for everyone. Oh, actually, it's Tuesday, April 18th. It just changed. Already, it's already midnight. So yesterday, the 17th, it was the first day all the Bucs could show up. Basically, they ran around and lifted weights and stuff, but we got to have a presser with Jameis Winston, and during that presser, he talked about diabetes, where it's a cause that's very close to his heart. But about a week ago, he showed up to this. Basically, it was a 5K run. Stamp Out Diabetes Run, or some named that, and it was at Amalie Arena. The first thing everyone should go look at the video. You can find it on the website, or probably not the app anymore, but the website, and how much better Jameis Winston has become speaking publicly from his rookie year. He always said the right things, but he said the right things like over and over and over. And he still uses some of them, and that's probably mostly because he believes them, but, he tries to improve every day. Can't turn the ball over, leadership is through sacrifice, things like that. But that's the beginning of the the video, he's up on stage and talking to all the runners for the race starts, and and I'm just sitting here, on my couch watching it on my phone, and you could see how excited he was and how joyful he was and how much it meant to him, and it's just really cool to watch. And then they actually put a camera on him, or I don't know if he was just holding his phone or what he was doing, but you don't really see him jogging, but you know it's him. You could, every once in a while see it's like a first person view of him jogging, and there's like some really cool moments where he goes by a father's son, and the little kid recognizes Jameis, and the kid starts to speed up and try to keep up with Jameis, and Jameis starts laughing, and he's telling the kid he's like, why are you trying to compete with me? He's like I don't like to lose. So that was cute. And then he runs by this group of girls. There's 3 of them. And when they realize it's him, you can see him digging for their phones, and they're trying to take video of him as he's taking video of her. And they're laughing and giggling, oh my God, oh, it's no big deal. It's just Jameis Winston. At one point, he stops and takes a selfie with a police officer. And then at the end, there's an interview of him. And once again, he kind of goes over the basic things, why he's there and stuff. But, Jameis being Jameis, he says, I went out there and tried my best. And then he had to make sure that he told everybody that he won.
Yeah.
I went out there, I tried my best. I won. Just, just let everybody know. And then he did it today again, or I guess yesterday. He did it yesterday again, Monday, in his presser, where he brought it up because I went out there and jogged. I won. So just watching Jameis be Jameis, when I guess the reporters are around or there's cameras there, but with him, just the way he is away from football, it's a real fun watch. It was a good time, and it just puts a smile on your face. So for my Bucs in the news was that video that you can find on the website about Jameis doing the 5K stamp out diabetes run. It's a good time.
Yeah. I didn't see that video you're referencing, but I definitely saw the press conference earlier today, and I noted that as well. It's a cause very close to my heart. My grandmama, she passed a couple weeks ago, and then we buried her the Saturday before, and then I went out and ran, and I won. I won. Just so y'all know, I won. And I was like, come on, Jameis, you won. Okay, we get it. But I'll tell you though, this, friend, that is exactly the kind of attitude that makes me say, make sure that for the upcoming year for fantasy football, everybody, you make sure you draft Jameis Winston. And if you're going to be in the 2nd annual Pewtercast Fantasy Football League, good luck getting Jameis Winston, because there's going to be a whole lot of people doing it. Which, hey, by the way, Ren, you know what?
What's that?
The 1st annual Pewtercast Fantasy Football League. Yeah, I won. I won.
I so knew that's where you were going. I knew you were going there.
I won.
But
I won it.
To be fair, I didn't play last year. So
it is true. You did not.
You won.
I did won.
I
still would have won. You didn't lose, but I won. You didn't lose.
I guess we'll have to see this year.
Yeah. Real players got to wash their uniform after the game. Just remember that.
What does that even mean? What does that mean?
It was a song. It was a lyric in a Will Smith song somewhere, I think.
Oh, all right.
Real players got to change the uniform after the game.
What does that have to do with fantasy football?
I just go with me on it. It's fine.
All right. Oh, Burn, you got me.
You got to play.
Good one. Oh, I see what you're saying. Since I didn't play, I didn't count.
Exactly.
All right. Okay, that's fair.
Exactly.
That's fair.
I had fantasy dirt on my uniform that I had to fantasy wash.
Well, to be fair, when you started, I was listening to the podcast when you started, but I just thought you were some kook from South Carolina, so I didn't really, feel comfortable aligning myself with you. In a fantasy football league.
And now that you know that I'm just some kook from South Carolina, you become the co-host of my show.
Yeah, and I'm okay with it now. Now I'll gladly align myself with you in a fantasy football league.
And try to take it over. Yeah, no, that's fun, guys. Make sure you go watch that, because we like good news. Speaking of good news, I've got a piece of Buc in the news that I'd like to bring up. And actually, I'll reference even the press conference from Jameis Winston, and I'll say exactly what Jameis said. Doug Martin is back. Dougie is back. He is back in the building. He is back, working out with the team. And Ian Rappaport earlier today tweeted out, said he thought it was big enough news that he actually tweeted, "Hey, Doug Martin is in the building and he is working out." And I tweeted back to him, I was like, well, that really shouldn't be news to those of us who are Bucs fans because we've all known that he was going to be back. But I'm glad that he's getting some sort of attention. But, there was a lot of articles that came out today from all the various sites. Almost everybody had mentioned on some level that Doug Martin was back in the building. And, on the one hand, I want to say I think it's great. I love seeing the guy back in the building. I love seeing him around. Regardless of what you guys think is going to happen with Doug Martin, regardless of what you think about his, he still has 3 games of his suspension that he has to serve out, but he gets to participate at least up through camp and through the preseason before he does that. But in this time, I want to take a minute just to kind of reiterate something, Ren, because I personally feel very strongly about this, but it's something that I said at the end of last year, which is, listen, Doug Martin, by all reports, they're saying he's looking good. His head's in the right spot. Now they've just got to see if his body's in the right spot and if he's going to be able to be the Doug Martin of success that we have seen in the past. And I think that's a fair thing to ask, but at the same time, there's always this like little boilerplate kind of paragraph at the end or somewhere in there where people keep bringing up, oh, he went into drug rehab and he's suspended and he went in through all of this. And, I just want to urge people like, hey, listen, that while that is true, we don't need to be running speculation on that in what that means or what he went in for. And honestly, it doesn't really matter. Because Ren, you want a big hot take of this whole Doug Martin situation? Like,
let's hear it.
I mean, this is going to blow your socks off. I've been working on this all day long. I've pulled out all the best knowledge of the English language that I can to be able to say this in exactly the right way. You ready for it? Here it is.
Mm-hmm.
Doug Martin is a Buccaneer until he's no longer a Buccaneer.
What? How could that be possible?
Exactly. Doug Martin is a Buccaneer until he's no longer a Buccaneer, which means I'm going to support him. I'm going to be behind him for as long as he is on this team. He's our guy, y'all. Now, is it possible that he could get cut? Yeah, it absolutely is. Is it possible that he could be playing for another team? He could be all of that is very, very possible. But until that happens, he's on this team. And in a lot of the ways, the way that kind of the hashtag I'm with 19 for last year was less about the person of Roberto Aguayo and more about I'm going to support the Buccaneers and I'm going to support the people who are on our team. And last year, our kicker was Roberto Aguayo, so I was going to support him. I'm going to continue to support Doug Martin. And I'm going to continue to pull for Doug Martin, and I'm not going to be blind to the whole situation. I'm not going to be stupid about the whole situation, but I'm not going to sit here and also say, oh, well, Doug Martin's gone. Oh, he's as good as gone. Oh, Doug Martin's out of here. Oh, I'm not going to do that because until he's no longer a Buccaneer, Doug Martin is still a Buccaneer. And you know what? For whatever he's gone through, whatever rehab he's gone through, I love that. And I said this back then, and I'm going to say it again now. I think it's going to be a real beautiful story of redemption that it's still in the middle of being written. And we've got to wait until it gets to the end. And I'd love to hear Doug actually be able to come and talk about this and use it for good, use it for a force for change, use it for positive, and to come back. Because I tell you what, him having a big comeback season this year and then coming back next year and having another big season and putting together a string of big seasons on the backside of this, man, that's going to be such a great story. And I think we're just in I think we're still in the middle of the story. So, I love the fact that he's back. I don't love the fact that people keep bringing up the whole rehab situation. And, it's for me is one of those things that until he's ready to fully tell the story, I'm okay just letting it be out there. And in the words of Jameis Winston, because he said this about Doug Martin in his press conference today, he said Doug is just Doug, and Doug means the world to this team. Like they love having him back. There's something that having, they talk about Doug being a great locker room guy. Like he's so well loved on this team. And I don't think you can underestimate what that means. Now, if what Jason Light said is true, and I believe it is true, that they will make the best decision for the team going forward, and that opens up the possibility that Doug Martin could potentially not be a Buccaneer come some point in this season. Then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But until then, Doug Martin's a Buccaneer until he's not a Buccaneer anymore, and I'm going to support him. I'm going to be behind him, and I love seeing him back, and I'm super excited for that.
Yeah, I've learned not to really try to follow up when you jump on your soapbox or what for one of these things that you really believe in. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah, I do, and I'm I know I get.
I'm not saying you're right or wrong. There's anything bad about it, but there's some things that you feel strongly about, and you want to get off your chest and tell everybody. So
there we
go for it.
Well, there we go. And that's and I say all of that not to be condemning. I really mean that in a tone of celebration. Doug Martin's back, and I love seeing him back, and it just I'm tickled to death to see him back in there. So, so that's what I've got.
Well, apparently, there was some. I guess I saw on Twitter there was they called it B-roll. There was a picture of Doug Martin outside working out. Most of the pictures you saw today were the players like in the sand pit. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming, that's because it's harder to run in sand. And, Rick, somebody put it out there. I think I want to thank it was Greg Auman put it out there. Hey, this is from the B-roll. And then Rick Stroud retweeted it and said, it's trim as I've ever seen him. So, from a kind of a grainy picture, that's about what you can take from it. That, the guys that are around him a lot, are saying that he already looks good and he's in the right spot. And Jason Light, he talked about his press conference where him and Dirk, he said very recently, which I don't think it was that day. I know they talked to him and had to sit down with him before the owners meeting, which is only a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And so and he said he said the best he'd ever seen him. So everyone was happy he was in the building. I don't think that boilerplate point is going to go away until probably halfway through this year, depending on what happens. Yeah. If it goes terribly wrong, then obviously it won't go away, maybe never. But if it goes right the way we hope, you hope, everybody hopes as Doug is a Buccaneer, by halfway through the season, like it'll just be forgotten again. It'll just be a blip in the road.
Very well, and I hope it does. And honestly, I hope it goes sooner than that, but you're probably right. That's probably about what it'll take. So, well, Ren, I think that's going to wrap up not only this segment, but also this episode. So another one in the can, as they say. Just a final reminder to everybody out there, you can get in touch with us about anything that you've heard us talk about today at facebook.com/thepewtercast. You can leave a comment for us there, or over at Twitter at thepewtercast. Or if you're a little bit more winded, than the 140 characters Twitter gives you, shoot us an email to thepewtercast@gmail.com. I want to say thanks again to Riley for coming on the show. You guys make sure Riley did such a fantastic job. Make sure you go follow him at Junior Almanac or check him out on the Cannon Fodder podcast. You guys can pull that up on iTunes. I believe it's also on Podcast Addict or whatever your favorite podcasting platform may be. Well, and guys, with that, something I'm thinking about here, with having the Bucs finally back in the building is, man, it's fun. Football is a lot of fun, and it's a great game. And all of this stuff is really just meant to be fun. So, as we're coming up on the draft, whether we pick somebody that you wanted or maybe you didn't pick somebody you didn't want, just remember, this is really all about having fun. It's a game, and we love it, and it's a beautiful game. And we wouldn't do this if we didn't have a whole lot of fun with it. Just keep having fun with the Buccaneers. This is going to be a great season, guys, coming up. We can all feel it in our bones. And so, guys, I guess the next time we're going to talk to you is going to be after the draft. So until then, go Bucs.